tonight
Yeah.
we are going to be talking about the upcoming changes that were detailed in the dev blog earlier today, and I will link that dev blog in the chat. Very simply, this is so much easier when I mute the Discord and it's just me. It's so much easier. So much easier. You guys want me to turn it back on?
Practice.
Anger
Anger
gang.
games, hello?
Anger gang.
Anger
All right.
games?
So
What's
tonight
the
we're
anger-
talking about the upcoming
Oh!
changes to citadels and capitals. I
You're
linked
bad
the
if you're
dev
listening to
blog
this show.
in the chat.
I think we should just let Johnny
That's
talk for the entire
censorship.
hour.
I was gonna say no. Here's what you do, okay?
If
You
Johnny wants to talk through the whole hour, he can. That's totally fine. Because I actually want to know what Johnny thinks about all this stuff.
Fucking disconnect me?
Yes, I did. Shut the fuck up.
That's
Toxic.
pretty toxic.
That's toxic.
That's fine. So did Johnny leave?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening to everyone yell over each other as per tradition.
Right, and
Toxic.
I'm trying to make that
Tradition.
stop because it's annoying. So stop being annoying, guys, or I'm gonna make it so that
Why?
you can't talk anymore. Because I'm a mod abuser. Abusive mod. That's right, that's what I am. Alright. Anyways, so I'm gonna pop this devblog on the stream here real quick. Because I have that figured out. Look at us go. So this is what we got. I'm gonna stream.
Dude name's Bugs Bunny revived me.
What the fuck? What?
Spicy. I really wanted to say it.
Hold on. What did you want to say?
Check DM.
Oh no. I'd have given you $100.
Go ahead, say it. Say it. Say what you gotta say.
Nah, it's actually in bad taste.
It's very bad taste, yes, but I would have given him $100 still.
So you're a coward.
so it's like-
Got it.
No,
Got it.
I
You're
just-
a coward.
Wait, is it
No,
bannable?
it's- Yes.
Oh,
That's yeah.
cringe.
It's bannable from the Discord. I don't know I don't know the rules.
Oh, is it
of
saying
TOS.
cum?
No.
Okay.
You know how
Why is
Okay.
that bannable in the
No one
Discord?
cares.
But mine is-
Why is
So
that bannable
tonight-
from the
Then it's
Discord?
probably bannable from life.
So, for the third time, tonight we're talking about these upcoming changes to capitals and structures. I'm assuming everybody that's here has read this dev blog, right?
Yep.
The
Yeah.
first good dev blog I've seen in a while.
Right?
And it was from CCP Kestrel.
Of course it was. Well, he
I
was the one who
thought- was it-
posted on Reddit. Well,
Wait, did he
posted
actually?
something.
Yeah, it was no. I thought it was Aurora that wrote it.
No,
It
you,
just says
Dev
Eve
blog.
usually they're
Online
not
team.
crediting the devs anymore on their blog posts.
Yeah,
think
they
they
don't credit
should.
the devs. Now, I want to make sure, just so everybody in the chat, can you read what's on the screen? Can you see it okay? I changed the resolution a little bit.
It says right
So it
there
should
from
be
Eve
better.
Online, from Eve Online team. It's good. Really.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
I was
All right.
saying the actual post on the E forums was by Aurora, I believe. So that's what I was
gotcha.
saying.
Oh,
So, and
Yeah.
either way, it's still a fantastic dev blog. Everything on this, I am completely okay with.
they're saying to scroll in a little, zoom in.
We're basically going back to pos fucking moons, which is going to be amazing unless you want to put a 10 billion Tatara on it. I don't care what the crabs think.
Hold on. There's not really ever gonna be Postmans again until you invoke passive income. Like,
Well, I'm saying attack wise is you only have that one cycle with the medium. Well, with the mediums, unless you put down a fucking Tatara, which most people aren't going to because the Tatara is 8 billion versus what fucking Athenor is like 1.3.
So what do you mean though? Like, are you saying that people aren't going to anchor? Well, that's
people are either not going to anchor them or their structures are going to be more vulnerable. And if they're more vulnerable,
Sure.
there's more chance for fights because there's less planning time and less bat phoning time
all right.
and less
So let's-
reaction time.
So let's drop into this so that people actually. I mean, I'm assuming everybody else has read it too, but just so that people know what you're talking about. So the changes that are coming to structures, you should be able to see on the screen here if you're eagle-eyed. So the big things are that the medium structures will have their hull timer reinforcement removed. all structures are going to have their shield damage cap removed. And there's a bunch of changes to the HP of each thing. So you're thinking that this is going to prevent people from anchoring structures or make them more vulnerable. Obviously, they're going to be more vulnerable. But why would it stop people from anchoring structures?
If it's just gonna
Because-
get blown up without much chance to defend it.
Yeah, so say you're an alliance with, I won't say X alliance, but say you're an alliance with like a low membership base right now
Mhm.
that already is having trouble forming fleets. You're going to like cut down on the amount of structures you have and the amount of space you hold because you're not going to be able to, constantly bat phone if your shit's just getting, refed by say 20 polarized bombers. So basically cuts down the amount of space you can hold effectively and defend, which could maybe stop, this empire sprawl. It's basically that's part of it, at least in my opinion. If you play Stellaris,
How's
Empire
it-
Sprawl.
How's it gonna stop Empire Sprawl at all? Like it's gonna. So yes,
Because
n-
if you
Go ahead.
can't, if it's just going to get constantly refed and be an annoyance, people are not going to want to, have a bunch of like per se like locust moons like goons have, or like I think Horde has their like whole thing where they just go to another region of mine. Maybe groups are going to cut back on that. I don't know. I'm not. I don't-
Groups like Horde and Goons are just gonna either form way harder than anyone can deal with on the armor timer, or they've got enough money they just don't really give a fuck and can just put another one down.
Exactly. Into the smaller groups, and especially I think in low sec, this is going to cause a bunch of fucking low sec fights over moons. Like I could foresee low sec getting the most benefit out of this with low sec moons and some of the value there.
I think Losec is going to kill all the JF mids. If you have JF mids and you have like bad space to traverse, like mid-entire space, the stations all suck. Your JF mids are getting blown up in the next month, I think, pretty safely.
So
Just because they can
why?
rip it.
So why haven't they been blown up already?
Because with 3 timers and the damage cap, it's a lot of effort to get not that much loot. But if you can put like 1 hyper hell on an Estra and reinforce it in 4 minutes, you only have to come back once for an actual fight.
Wait, what do you mean without much loot? I thought loot didn't matter unless it was abandoned.
You get
Even
the
just like
core,
the core and stuff.
you get the core and the modules from it. It's like 800 mil, I think, for Estra cores.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think 800.
Oh, so you mean like loot in the form of cores?
Oh,
Yeah.
cores, set up modules, salvage. Get like a bill or 2 from Estras usually.
And so that's in regards to there's no hull timer, right?
Yeah.
You just get the one.
I think the uncapped shield is actually pretty universally great because let's be real, no one gets real defenses on shield timers anyways. Just get it over with and get to the real stuff.
The
Right.
only time you would defend stuff on shield if it's like direct range of your staging and you're able to flash form, right? Basically.
Right. So
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about this a little bit deeper, so a lot of the time, most of the time, you don't get a fight on a shield timer. It's done, and then people fight on the armor timer, and not a whole lot of fights on hull timers.
You see fights on the whole timer in smaller alliance situations. That's usually where, if they're going to bat phone, it'll be on the armor or be on the hull after they couldn't do the armor by themselves.
And so you're
Yeah.
specifically relating that to the smaller guys.
The way
But
the
what
big timers work, the bigger groups redline, is usually you have stand-up armor plates on structures, so you have a lot of HP to chunk through in the armor timer, and if you're losing the armor timer, you can disengage and dock in the structure, whereas in the
Right.
hull timer, if it dies, you're much more vulnerable.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that you fight on the armor because there is some safety there. But when it gets to hull, like that structure is very much at risk. So now that I'm actually thinking about the hull timer being removed, if there's no shield damage cap and the Astra or whatever can be refed by one person in a hyper hell in 5 minutes, there's not a lot of time to form a reasonable response to that. And you're essentially skipping the only timer that these structures previously got fights on.
So it's gonna create the dynamic where you have to fight and you have to commit, or you just lose the moon, right? Or you just replace the structure, right? So it goes from, oh, okay, you're just whelping a fleet over an 800 mil Athenor to, okay, well now you're losing a fleet to basically you're losing a fleet to save the moon, right?
There's a
That's-
lot. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot more fucker walk situations.
Well, no, they're
That-
all going to be fucker walk situations. Every single one of them.
I
Well,
think it's
not
more
if people.
interesting.
I was gonna say not if people switch to Tataras.
Like the thing is with the moons, if you nuke the moon, you have to wait. Is it like 4 or 6 weeks when you pull? Like it's a lot of SQ forfeit in that sense. I suspect certain regions which are kind of more sparsely populated will have a lot of troll refs going on.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I didn't think about. Are moons gonna like cancel the pops on the one reinforced timer now, or is it gonna be
No,
like
No.
mid-second timer?
It pauses
No.
the pull, I believe, is how it works.
No.
Not until the
once it
second.
goes 1% into hull, it that's when the pull is killed.
Yeah, so will that happen like mid-second bash now, or
Yeah, it'll happen at the beginning of
Oh.
the second bash.
So someone in chat is asking, will this affect the TTT? Not Trash Talk Tuesday, but the Tranquil Trading Tower?
No.
Pretty
don't
much
think
not at
so.
all, no.
Because it's in
No.
high sec, you wouldn't use the ships you would try and use to damage cap it, like super carriers or dreads or so on. Not damage cap it,
But
but
you could reasonably bring a large force to attack the TTT and do it relatively quickly in subcaps.
you could.
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's
wondering.
the damage
well,
cap on XLs is 93,750, I believe, or it was
Mhm.
before they removed it. So that's still like what, like 50 Lashaks or something. It's a huge amount of ships.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a
that's
lot of
just-
people in high sec, and there's a lot of people that would benefit from that Keepstar being destroyed.
A lot of people who would benefit from it living too.
Right,
Right.
but they only removed the one timer from the medium structures. It's not like, all structures
this
have
is a
their whole
Keepstar
timer
anyways.
reinforced. Yeah.
But I mean, without the
bear in
damage
mind
cap,
the shield HP on a Keepstar is increasing by 25% too.
right? Yeah, exactly. So, what is that HP now? Look it up real quick.
I don't think anyone thinks about structures about HP. Think about damage cap and time. So it's like a very new way to conceptualize thinking about how structures are approached. Like it's like almost going back to old pass mechanics to some degree. I think is good.
Luckily, sort
Yeah.
of passes it now for the shield, right?
And so Keepstar
Looking up
has
good.
27 million shield HP currently on Tranquility.
Okay, so then it's 27 million.
So 35 afterwards, right?
Yeah, 33.7. So, how much damage does a Lashak do? Fully spooled?
2,000 without pot, I think, give or take. Just roughly.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean it's kind of going back to the small, medium, large towers. I would much rather go back to bosses, but
Well, I don't think we're ever gonna go back there.
Yeah, I don't think we ever will, but I think it's definitely a change in the right direction. I mean, like just the structure changes alone are gonna prove to be prove to see a lot more fights over, right? Like those expensive moons, right? People are gonna just turbo hell for them, or it's just gonna die and replace the structure. Now, like, and as I was going on with my thought before, right? Like you're gonna go from the people being like, oh, it's it's I'm losing 15 max for this 800 mil Astra to I'm losing um my entire fleet, or this person is contesting this entire fleet to basically um uh take the poll, right? Like you're now either fucking out the coalition that you're attacking out of their entire poll, because all you need is what 1% or 2% on the whole timer, and
Yeah.
it blows the
So you
poll
just
up.
just bring a bomber to the second timer, shoot it once, and the pole's dead.
Pretty much, right? And now you're costing that coalition, instead of the SRP, you're now costing them that entire poll by 10-15 minutes of work of like one nano hell. You know what I mean? So the volatility of
be
those
fucked.
timers are going up quite a bit, right? Everybody sees this as more of like a, oh well, like what's this and this and this, in terms of like Sorry, my brain stopped working when I halfway through that thought.
That's okay.
So like I feel like some people are like seeing it as like, oh, negativity of like, oh, like people aren't gonna want to fight over these timers, right? People aren't gonna see any like costs in these timers, right? I see it as a like hyper positive PvP change because just of the fact that you're forcing those people to show up for their coalition, right?
Mhm.
It's no longer like, and I've heard this for multiple years. It's like, oh, it's only like a 400 mil structure, you know what I mean? It's only like the structure only costs so much, right? And
Right.
now it's gonna be just like, oh, dude, we need to save this because this is a fucking double R64 blue pop, or I don't know anything about the mining
What
these
is a
days.
I mean,
what
I
is a
think on
oh, you don't
on
know
those
what an
really valuable
R64 blue
moons
pop
for any
is.
alliance that can swing it at all, they're just gonna put Tataras on them.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think what we're gonna see, but at the same time, even those R30 like now R32s, R16s, and R6s are still like hyper worth because of the ability that it brings for producing those small parts for the capital components, right? And that kind of swings into the indie change a little bit, of the capital changes, right? You need those R16s and all those other moons for capital construction now. It's not
Well,
just
you just need to acquire those goods. You don't necessarily have to mine it yourself.
exactly, but groups that are like deep in null that have trouble like importing stuff, even if they're small groups, right? And they still want to build dreads, they still want to build these high tier ships, right? To contest in the battleship meta that we're now in. Um, like they're gonna be forced to either import or mine those moons themselves. So there's not really going to be any in between, right? It's you either import it or you either import it or you just don't have those ships. Like it's or sorry, you either import it or mine it. I'm sorry. And having those ships there is going to prove to be a massive asset, especially for people on like Paragon Soul. Pretty sure Declan's or not Declan, but all the way north, like the absolute north. Those people that are super far away from like these trade hubs, right? They need to mine that stuff so that they can have access to these ships. So it's gonna be a lot more critical for those guys to mine the moons.
And so you're thinking that this will make them fight harder for it, right?
Yeah, it'll increase like what it'll increase the value of the moons, not just in terms of like actual like raw value. It'll increase the value based on like what it means to that alliance, you know what I mean? So now like some random R6, right? If it doesn't have a Tatara because they can't afford a good Tatara with decent rigs to like keep the pull there long enough, because I off the top of my head I don't know the price of that stuff. um
A good bit.
it'll increase the cost like for that specific group, right? So like
Yeah,
how we're
I
going
think
from
the where it strikes in like the balance for the cost worthiness is going to depend a lot on like how big of an alliance or group you're talking about. Because for some smaller groups, it'll just make it completely unaffordable. But for those like more mid-sized things, I can see it kind of giving a nice trade-off to work with.
right, and even for like the larger groups that like like, because I know in what Horde do you guys do court moons? Do you guys do like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah? So like court moons inside of Horde, court moons inside of Goons, right? These guys are gonna also have Athenors and stuff like that, because who knows, that court may not be able to afford it. So then you have these situations where now you have to defend these court moons.
That is
I
So
a good
inside,
thing though, right?
I would imagine that with big alliances, if people have high value moons they're paying for, the alliance would form to defend it. I mean, I'd imagine that's what we would do in this situation.
Yeah, it's both. It's imagine what you it's what you imagine we would do in the situation, but also like no one's just ever going to do it anyways because there might be some meme refs that get pulled off every now and then, but no one's going to actually go and kill one
There
of these
will
things in the middle of
one.
workspace.
Well, I
Oh, there'll be
mean,
some dumb one die, I'm
so
sure.
it depends, right? Like, let's say for an example, some hyper meme group goes ham and has like 10 hells running around, zonking like 40 Athenors in one night. That would be hilarious because you would just timer spam the enemy. You'd probably get to kill a few of them just by virtue of so many timers being created. It wouldn't all be defended, depending on the group size you're going for. But it also creates PvP too by like putting the supers or whatever ship you're using to ref them in space too. So I think it's good in a number of aspects. And like it incentivizes you to use bigger ships to shoot them, dreads and carriers and supers.
Well, it also forces people to kind of to choose, you know, which moons are worth more to their to save, right? To what's worth more to their alliance and their coalition.
Yeah, true.
And definitely like how do you choose the worth of these moons? You know what I mean? It's not, for some people it's not just raw ISK, you know. So it's definitely going to change the aspect of how people see moons, most definitely. Not immediately, right? Because nobody's going to really see the effects of it right off the bat. But you know, a few months from now, people are going to be like, okay, well now I can take, you know, like you said, you know, the 5 or 6 hyper supers, right? Because like by myself, I own like 5 or 6 hyper supers that I could just throw at anything. And
Nice flex, Spicy.
Yeah,
I mean,
nice flex, bro.
Just casual
fucking
six
rich,
supers.
you're rich, dude.
I think it'll be interesting too for any like Warfront deployments because one of the big time sinks that we found in our big deployments is just clearing all the mediums as you go is incredibly time consuming. Doing 3 timers with damage cap means you have to form 3 actual fleets and shoot the thing for 24 minutes each. It's a huge amount of time investment from members' sake. And a lot of it too is just bashing, right? It's not even contested.
Yeah. So like now uncontested timers, right? Because you know, groups that are like being evicted, right? They're gonna give up eventually. It's not like just gonna be like, oh, we're gonna fight forever, yeah, right? Unless you're the goons and you're defending Delve. But
Nah, we were a week away, dude.
a week
Sorry.
away.
The
Yeah,
3-day
Sorry.
plan would have pulled it off, I believe.
I'm so sorry.
The Asbels did.
I'm so sorry. Anyways, back to this.
You really your own show, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and like so I think it'll make offensive campaigns go a lot faster. Like I feel like if you have that kind of wave of momentum, you can keep riding it. And you can even just let your members go ham and like let them ref stuff on their own to some degree as well if they trust them to not feed too much. And it'll kind of make regions that are being uncontested, I think, fall a lot quicker. There might be contests or kind of the larges and XLs, but the mediums will just get annihilated, which is good because frankly, relative to how much like power they provide you, Astras are way too strong, I think, relative to cost.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They're moving the whole timer for only medium structures, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
there is 2 timers now instead of 3.
And then an Astra House is a medium structure still, right?
Correct.
Also correct.
Okay, so the large structures are Tatara, Fortizar, and
Asbel. Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Correct.
just double checking.
The one mildly interesting thing, like with regards to that kind of came up is, I feel like we're actually gonna see a lot more Asbels out in space now.
Yeah, I was actually
That
thinking
extra
of dropping
timer.
Asbel today, to be honest with you.
Because canceling, like, and this is, dude, this is like the wild stuff that I'm hoping to see, like, and the eventual war that happens, right? Because you know, after, I don't know if there's a lull in Eve right now. I haven't looked at the
There's
activity,
not.
right?
Well,
But
no,
there's
there is
typically a
not.
lull that comes up during summer, right? Like, where everybody's kind of like, you know, peaceful and hanging out, just, you know, being friends with each other. Obviously, you know, you have Horde trying to invade some people because, you know, it's Horde. But you know, I foresee like we'll have a few months of peace, and then like, you know, there'll be some war called. Somebody's gonna, you know, pee on somebody's front yard, and then they're gonna get offended, and then they're gonna invade.
World War P.
Hopefully we see that soon, right? World War
Horde's not
P.
invading anyone. We're just content deployed to the set to shoot some goons.
Yeah, and your 2 Horde Sigs are
Yeah, the ones that form nightmares and like 80 dreads. It's all good. Content
yeah,
blend.
and then you got your what? Your big large 6,000 man Sig deployed down there.
Oh,
So
Which SIG is that? The
we all know.
the public one?
No, the test Sig.
Oh,
The-
I mean,
Jesus Christ, dude. That's too much. That was too much to get that joke.
Yeah, it took a minute for him to kind of see where I was going with that. Oh no.
So right now, Johnny, you guys are content deployed. Even even if you're forming nightmares and stuff like that, you're still content deploying. That's okay. I'll
It's
give
no
you that.
pores. Like say, so if you're
Yeah,
forming
exactly, no pores, right?
if you're forming fleets that are smaller, having stronger ships per person allows you to punch up more and take fights you couldn't if you're flying like Feroxes or Hurricanes or some cheap T1
Right.
ship, right?
So where are you guys deployed right now?
We're living in T2 TAC V in Tenerife in a fort called Kinky.
Okay, and are you guys on offense or defense?
I'd say at this
Offense.
point we're on defense because the entire Imperium has counter-deployed us and is 5 jumps away.
Okay.
Motherfucker, you wiped a Typhoon fleet from RC yesterday. Oh, well, we're on defense.
And so do you think that, how do you think these changes will impact your future defense of the things that you'll be defending?
I would imagine if the Imperium wanted to, they could probably roll another region or two pretty easily, but it remains to be seen if they want to go for the big fights or not again.
I think everybody's gonna spend more time building up. I don't think anybody's gonna roll anybody anytime soon, but I think there's definitely gonna be, the posturing and the proxy wars that are gonna go down, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
somebody's gonna get bored
So-
somewhere.
As far as like cap and super production goes, like I talked to other FCs and different alliances and stuff and logistics dudes, like my understanding is basically no big groups in the game have been building any kind of volume dreads, carriers, fax, supers, titans since the changes happened. They were just, the market value is like half of what it cost to actually build one, so it didn't make sense financially to build any of them. But I think there's going to be a really big change when the changes hit, because I'm being told that dreads are going to be like maybe 3.5 billion versus like 8 at current prices to build, which seems like they're much more back on the menu.
So that's scaled off current price, right? Like, that's not
Well,
scaled off
current price, it's
after
like
changes.
current price, it's like 2.9-ish, but that's like I presume that's going to go up a bit as people like start to build them. You're going to see that demand for those parts rise.
The napkin math figures I've been given today range from like 2.7 to 4.5, so I suspect it'll probably like land somewhere in the middle of there, but I'm not certain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big indie either, so
I think we'll probably still see it on the high side.
If I had to just
No,
gut check, I feel like it'd be like a 3.2 to 3.5
because that's how
haul.
economics works.
This is something that I think is going to change very, very quickly, right? Because everybody wants dreads, right? There's the demand there. Nobody's supplying any. Now that we're going to have cheaper dreads, also your Discord's going.
If the demand was that strong, you would still see the price climbing probably quicker than it has, just from people running out of said stockpile.
yeah, I think one of the big problems was that people had a lot of dreads post-war, but like not that many died in the grand scheme of things, like relative to how big some of the stores were. Like we did a stimulus program, Horde did last year, where we basically, if you train a dread out, we give you a dread, and we gave out like getting close to like 4 figures of dreads to our members for free from our stores, and we can still reimburse them still. So like we had a lot on hand.
Right, and I don't doubt that the caches are just like gone, right? What I'm saying though is that like these small groups that can't build it, that like these small groups, right? And I'm not specifically talking about these giant groups, right? I'm talking about in the grand scheme of Eve, right? Like Snuff still has caches, right? Shadow Cartel's caches are getting a little thin, right? Like a lot of these groups in LoSec have caches that are getting thin, right? Nobody knows how Volta's caches are doing, but they lost his Zernitra, so that's a thing. So like a lot of these caches, yeah, they've been thinned out. They've been
It depends too on how you reimburse members. Like if you do ISK or if you do ship hulls, like we've taken the position that ship hulls are usually better, because if I lose a Nagelfar and I get a new one, I'm incentivized to fit it up immediately and get it back to store zone, and I also don't have to spend any time actually looking for a new one on contracts or wherever. Whereas I don't think LoSec has the same kind of like access to that much stock.
right. And usually in LoSec, from what I've experienced, is that they just hand you like you get in fleet, they just hand you a ship, right? Like some dread bombs are done that way. But at the same
Yeah, I mean,
time,
the smaller the group, the more reasonable that is to do.
well, at the same time, right? They give me 1 second.
And so still, I forgot I was gonna. I guess some things never change. Still don't know what the hell I'm doing with this.
My understanding too is that supers and titans are getting like comparably cheaper. So I was quoted
Yes.
a rough figure of like 30 billion ISK to build a super, give or take, and about 130 to build a titan. This is like napkin math.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like sit in stone or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I have a bunch of napkin math in front of me. You guys want to
They're
kind of
definitely back in the producible range.
I was told
Seems
that
like.
jump freighters are going to be like half as much. So if you're a logistician, that should be very appealing to
So
purchase a
this is
JF
like
then.
this is like optimal cost stuff. A Komodo has been like halved to 150 bill. So rest in piss, Mav.
Finally, I can fucking build this Revenant.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
Empire Titans. So this will be Empire stuff. So Titans like 120. Super be at 30. Jump freighter 6.4 bill.
Where's the post about the capitals? Is it?
I'll post the whole thing.
So I think at those prices, we actually will see production be spooled up again. I don't think it'll be anything approaching the scale we saw in like 2017, 18, 19. But I do think
I
that
don't think
groups.
that's going to be as
Oh,
robust
no,
as you think,
is
though,
there a-
because there's enough gas on Jita to build about 10 revelations at new prices.
Is there a dev blog on this for the for these changes?
Carriers are 2.4, faxes are 2.7, dreads are about 2.9.
It's the
by the way.
same one, right?
It was a separate one, but there is another one on there.
The interesting one for me
So
is the battleship price changes. So a T1 Empire battleship's only going down like 20 mil. A pirate faction one is more than halving.
Well, that's more than having the build cost. They were still cheaper than that because of the like faction LP buying.
Yeah, but like a pirate battleship's average cost will go down about 700 mil.
Yeah,
And a
and like
faction
that's a
one, so like a APOC Navy will be 400.
And like that 700's about where they were selling now, but again, like no one could actually build them if they got like a blueprint because it was just better to do the LP thing.
And so this is what we're talking about here. So we're
Yeah.
talking about this post by Aurora on the forums, right?
Yeah.
And
So
the
I think-
spreadsheet that I have to download apparently.
So in conjunction with the cap cost reduction, if battleships are getting cheaper too, I think we'll see the meta shift more and more away from the hack meta, which is really good to see. I think people are very keen for that after like 4 years of hack meta being very dominant in nullsec.
I think there'll still be a lot of inertia for it. But
Yeah, and there's still benefits to hacks. They're not going to be like garbage unusable ships. It's just for heavy timers, like affordable things like, the classics max TFIs, those kind of things, rattlesnakes will be very good.
Rattlesnakes
Navy
are
APOCs online.
pretty disgusting still.
Yeah, rattlesnakes, nightmares, all very good ships.
And so this post that you've linked me, Cryo, this is essentially just the napkin math on everything.
It's real napkin math stuff, yeah. So like you'll see like a Navy APOC will be 400 mil, which is only 200 mil more than a regular APOC, and a pirate faction battleship's like a nightmare will be, probably end
That's
up on
not
the
too
market
bad.
similar cost to what it is now, but it'll be buildable. The biggest thing is, yeah, sure, these are buildable, but no one's actually getting the wormhole gas for like Titans in any massive scale. There's just not enough market volume for it yet, and I doubt there's actual market volume happening.
I mean, once production starts, like now that it's compressible and everything, like I don't think it's gonna like just instantly be flooded with enough gas to do everything you want, but I think you'll see it pick up.
I think you'll see
Well-
blocks like Imperium, like Horde will have like you'll have your dedicated wormhole weirdos who'll just ship it out and sell it in house rather than going to Jita.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was another post that I saw that compared the materials required to build a Naglfire.
Yeah, that's there as well. A big thing to keep in mind on top of that, like your cores, whatever the weirdo core things you have to build, you could basically they're like tripling the outputs on those blueprints. So like the same input.
I want to
So-
say, and someone correct me if I've just misread this somewhere, that it also looked like they're reducing the physical size of some of the components to make the actual logistics of moving them easier too, which will be nice.
So I just want to make sure that I understood what you said there, Cryo. So not only are the required minerals or components going down, but the blueprints that make the minerals are going to produce more of these
Some
items.
of them will, yeah. So like the regular cores required to make a capital core temperature regulator is like dropped from like 250 to 100. And
Okay.
then your capital core temperature regulator, so that's just a massive cutout of the core temperature regulator. And then I think if I read it right, they're like increasing the amount that the blueprints make those cores.
But it's basically so like everything is basically just going to be insanely easy to build at that point.
It'll
Or
be
is there
cheaper.
going to be something different? Like
Let me find it.
I guess what's the lever that's being pulled on that's going to keep this from turning into like a 700 million isk dreadnought?
The fact you can't just sit there in a rock all AFK for 12 hours a day.
Sure you can.
Yeah, but you also need wormhole gas. You also need a bunch of other stuff to go into it. And PI. PI is always
Gotcha.
going to be a huge bottleneck because who
And
wants
so
to make
what
PI
people
willingly?
people aren't going to start farming this?
People are
Oh,
already
yeah,
farming it. It's
already
just
farming it. Moving PI is ass because putting like P0s and P1s in industry is dumb as hell.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like, yeah, so like as you step up your P1, P2, P3, P4, it gets smaller and smaller, the output. But the fact that like, I have P0, you need 9 million units of water, and that takes like 5 freighters, is always a problem.
Okay. So it's
Like, it was,
still
like, it's been a while
it's
since I've actually looked at the freighter amounts, but like, I think it's like to build a Wyvern or something, you need like 3 freighters full of water.
and so it's still very restrictive then based on that.
It's no longer as easy as just inputting how many compressed minerals I need to buy off the market and then eating it over to my Citadel, and like 2 weeks later I have a super carrier. There's a lot of other steps that need to happen.
Hmm. Well, so it seems like so even though this is coming, it's going to take quite a bit more than just this to actually do what we want it to do.
I'm not seeing anyone on the industry side complaining, except for the guys that have, built nothing but core temperature regulators for a month, and because
Yeah.
now the outputs are like tripled off the blueprints. And like, well, fuck. Um, yeah, it's like it's all around. This is an improvement, and you will start seeing dreadnoughts are producible or will be once you are able to get a reliable source of wormhole gas. That is the big bottleneck right now. PI is fine. It's just a pain to move around.
Well, and thanks to the structure changes, it's going to be much easier to evict wormholers and steal their gas.
yeah, that's the one perspective I don't think I've heard enough of on that is exactly how wormholers are feeling about this whole thing.
I'm seeing a lot of wormholers complain about it. I'm seeing some CSM guys going, "Hey, that might be a problem."
Yeah,
But
They
I
could
mean, it
surely
could
change the
be.
mechanics though, couldn't they, for wormholes and make it like it was before 3 timers if that's such a big deal for that meta?
You would
I
hope
feel like
so.
They could, but let's even if CCP's done some good stuff right now, let's not expect it to necessarily keep going.
My understanding too is a lot of the changes that have happened over the past like 2 or even 3 years have shafted wormholers pretty hard, from like surgical strike to this and other things.
you say surgical strike 3 times, then a loggerhead pilot will turn up to complain about it.
Look, all I'm gonna say is that I think that the fucking dread changes that are coming through is going to be wildly, wildly, like,
I would
improve the
be,
gameplay.
because they can be replaced. You will probably start seeing people slinging them around a bit more. Like right now, Johnny's probably in the same boat. Everyone's on our side, at least, is real conservative with how you're using dreads. You're not going to sling them around too much, unless you're snuffed out. But you're going to see more and more people using them because they can be built.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was a combination of giving away a huge number of ours in stimulus, and then we had to kind of measure our remaining caches until they became buildable again.
Yeah,
And I
and
imagine a
so
lot of
now,
groups are kind of in the same boat.
and so
Someone
with
told me that in
these,
it had no hulls or something. They gave the dudes IS class dread fight or something, so I'd imagine they're quite low as well.
Or was that asking us? We just gave out.
Yeah, we get hulls. I heard it into disc, but I'm not certain.
I'm not involved in SRP on any way, but I think we're just like, here, have a new dread, and then typically the insurance covers any shortfall.
and so that'll be easier to do, much easier to do. Now, one thing that I did see a lot of was about these things at the bottom here: the capital core temperature regulator and the
Yeah, so
Neuralink
that used to be
protection
like
cell.
250 of those in like the core temperature reg things. Now you only need like 100 of its core ingredient,
Gotcha.
which was the hard part. So
But
like,
those are
there's little bits, but then you needed 250 of this big thing, and now you only need 100.
Yeah, but those are like the expensive components
Yeah.
of the ship, right? All this other
Yeah,
stuff is
so
just kind of tedious things.
yeah, I'm definitely keen for the especially the drop in price for faxes is going to be interesting. And the drop in price of dreads, you're going to see more horde dreads get flung around.
Oh, that's the thing too. Yeah, that's a really good point. Hodred meta has been very dead in nullsec outside of jammers for like a couple years now. This will definitely bring back Hodreds, I think, into the mix, which is really interesting.
It's interesting, right? Like right now, I'm sitting here in Delve because I haven't had time to deploy it yet. I've got a faction battleship that after these changes will be slightly more expensive than a dreadnought, but have 1.2 million EHP and be able to take fax reps. And it's like, sweet, I could spend money on that or a dread. And it's like you're in a really awkward spot with some of the stuff where if you do bling fit your pirate faction battleships, you're getting into the same EHP realm as like carriers. It's insane. So that's an interesting balancing point that I'm interested to see how that evolves.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. So we're shifting back. Seems like we're shifting back into the battleship meta, and Podreds in a battleship meta. Oh my god,
Yeah,
I can't wait. I might actually log in for that. Like, I'll be honest, if I see Blazing Bunny ping, log in your Hodreds, I'm logging in a Hodred. 100%.
yeah. If you drop your dread and you kill like 6 or 7 battleships, it's even.
Fuck yes, dude. It's all about killing the battleships. Kill one battleship, I'm having
It's
fun.
fun.
Kill one marauder.
Shooting
See the
battleships
dread.
in a dread is very fun.
It's like the most satisfying thing in Eve.
The nice
Shooting
thing about the
battleship in a
battleship
dread.
meta 2 Redline is that the groups that are able to do things like run shiny fits, like Dead Space and faction hardeners and plates and things like that will benefit immensely from battleship meta. Like one of the big complaints I heard from smaller to mid-sized groups about the hack meta is that there's basically nothing that can tank 200 munions, so if you bring enough munions, you can always frag. Whereas with battleships, your HP is so much higher that it scales really well with the bling fits. There might be some mid-scale groups that pop up as well to this and they can fight the blob a little bit more.
That's really exciting. Like, honestly,
you're going to see increase in blinging from a lot of people, I think, in nullsec. You're going to see people bringing out slaved Navy APOCs that put like 800k HP on the field.
You think people will run amulets in nullsec? Interesting.
Yeah.
We run them.
It's called putting a succubus in your frigate escape bay and then scooting out if you die. You'll see people running like mid-grade slaves only cost like 700, and if you're running a ship like that's worth 2 bill, then some people judge that as worth it.
First
Yeah,
of
it's
all,
like,
they're amulets now, and second of all, wouldn't you want a ship that interdiction nullifies?
you can't put nullified ships in your frigate escape bay, I believe.
Nope.
you cannot.
That's why I said put a overprop succubus in there, because then you can't get scrammed and you can just boost away.
So there is somebody in the chat. It's Steph Yakin. Looks like the first time they're here, and they're saying a message that I love. They are saying that they plan to gate dreads and low just for fun and get fights. Can you imagine people doing
What
that
year is
again?
it?
So there's an unspoken rule, whereas if someone's gating a Hodred around, you don't just doomsday it right away or
You
drop
do
your super
not.
carrier. You need to give them a good fight and give them some frags for their effort.
You absolutely do. I might even start using Hodreds. I
But say
used to run
when
around
was
too.
that a rule?
Johnny, do you remember the Hodred in shit, where was it? I
LXQ
believe
probably. We've had some incidents where, so if Horde technically isn't supposed to drop caps in LXQ, especially if you come
No.
for good fights, but LXQ is headliner's domain. Occasionally, some feisty legionnaires will doomsday you, and occasionally some Horde FCs are bad boys and break the rules as well.
Yeah. No, it was BWF. It was when you guys were in Geminate. The Uemon deployment from Goons. And
Yeah.
I was baiting for like a Ferox fleet, and I jumped my Hodred in there. That was a blast.
Yeah.
That was the last time I flew a Hodred. and got it in a fight.
I remember doing some really fun stuff in BWF. I remember baiting like faxes and getting, people would try and bait S2 and have people like try and draw the hyper hells to warp it and try and tackle them and stuff. Like there's tons of huge like escalations that have happened in that spot. Like BWF on the Polygate, or not the Polygate, the Jonin? I can't remember. Gosh.
Yeah,
Korra.
Jimin. The Jiminate campaign was fantastic. I loved that. But yeah, no, that was probably when I was doing that with Dreads and like watching what's his face, Lasker Emmanuel do it on YouTube, like his videos. I used to just watch those over and over and over. So I might do that too. I might join Steph Yakin
I
and
think they're
beating
approaching
Dreads around.
affordable. If the hulls are under 3 bill, a bill for guns, a bill for fits, that's like what, 4.5-ish fully fit, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's getting to the realm where you can eat them around a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or you can use them as bait too. If you think someone's going to doomsday, you can always, gate a hot around when the hyper Ragnarok or the hyper hell warps in to zap you. You tackle that and go for that instead.
Yeah. So Ashtarothi, did you stream about this stuff today yet?
Not yet. I'm gonna hit it up tomorrow. I already had errands that I had to do today, so of course they launched it today. That's why I came here, so I could talk about it.
Yeah, so we get first digs at the Ashtarothi opinion. I love that. I love that for us. So what do you think about this stuff?
Well, there's a lot to like in it, for sure. I do know that there's a lot of people that are concerned in particular about the medium structures. Everything from low sec people to high sec people to especially wormholes. I think that there's a certain piece of that should be like looked at and make sure that it does not suddenly become a requirement to have a Fortizar to be able to exist in a wormhole and take more than a day off without a single Lashak taking out your entire empire.
So what's wrong with needing a Fortizar to stage out of, though? That's what I don't understand.
Well, that makes it so that the bare necessity to occupy a wormhole seriously is 14 billion ISK, which is quite a bit for a low-class wormhole.
Put it to any wormholer that they are doing it wrong if they can't afford 14 billion ISK. The amount of money you can get out of a wormhole, yeah.
Well, high-class wormholes, perhaps. But
like a Fortizar costs like what, 2 blingy marauders?
Yeah, I mean realistically,
well, either way, it is a significant change to them, because the problem is that with the reduced cycle time and the speed in which you can strip the shields and ease in which you can strip the shields, it makes a situation in which, like, literally, if you take a weekend off, you could come back to everything gone.
Right,
but that's the appeal of wormholes, though. Like, the appeal of wormholes has always been higher risk, higher rewards with permanent chip loss upon structure death.
That's correct. But this is a pretty significant. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, I've heard a lot of, like, basically universally from the wormhole people that they have panned it. I just think that maybe there could be something worked out a little bit more there. Other than that, I mean, the capital changes are incredibly fun. I think that the 3 changes are going to compound on each other that in a way that maybe people aren't necessarily expecting yet, because we have the combination of the 2 changes from today that was announced, but also remember, structures just had their capabilities to project against capitals significantly reduced. So those capitals are now cheaper, and structures are just very much so less defensible. So it seems like an entirely new meta. One of the things I find, or I keep hearing, is that they relied on, smaller groups rely on the inconvenience factor, both in high sec and in wormhole space, to kind of protect themselves from just being bullied by bigger groups. And they feel that this is losing some of that. But it's a new meta.
I think it'll be very good for the game and cause more conflict and more big ships to be undocked, which is good for EVE in general.
Of course, yeah. Now, I did want to ask, though, so wormholers, wormholers seem to always be getting the big end of the stick in Eve. And do you think that that's just because there's always been that thing where CCP never intended people to live in wormholes? And maybe they've just decided that anything that is collateral damage to wormholes is acceptable?
I mean, I think
I
part
think
of
it's
it.
a combination of the fact that they are trying to make wormholes into like. There's nothing necessarily wrong with wormholes being big and spooky and whatever, and so they may actually be seeing that as a good thing. That said, the real thing here is that wormholes really do interact with some of the most most mechanics and most niche mechanics in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very frequent that they get hit as collateral damage, regardless of whether or not CCP intended to, just because there's so many different ways that something can impact wormhole space in an unintended way.
Right. And Riker, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, at the same time though, you've got wormholes that make just incredible amounts of ISK. So I think part of it too is that, like, okay, yeah, you're gonna need a Fortizar to live there, but like, how realistically, if you're like only one dude who's trying to start out in wormholes, like, you probably shouldn't be in wormholes in the first place. And if you're a small
Yeah.
group,
Maybe don't do that.
yeah,
If
and
this
if you're a
change
small
is
group,
going to evict you from your wormhole,
Well-
you are going to be evicted from your wormhole at some point. It just brought it forward maybe a month.
The thing that was brought to my attention is just how quickly you can strip the shields. So it'll be very easy for a roaming group of wormholers to basically just go around and strip the shields off of every structure that they find until they find a favorable timer and then go for it.
well, the
Yeah,
same
but I mean
thing too.
but like that happened previously. To be honest, like there's a strategy that's been going on forever where you like
No, because you can't, because remember there's only one timer now. So basically you hit it and you go, oh, is this good enough to go after? Whereas the other has an entire second timer to be set up for. So this is like it could easily be in and out in like just about 24 hours.
thought it wasn't it 2.5 days plus 3 hours? Was that
Is
the
it
null
2.5
second hacks
days?
only?
That's low and
I'm-
null, I think.
Hold on, I thought it was a day and a half. Maybe it's 2.5.
Yeah, it's certainly possible that CCP will have to look at these changes relative to wormholes.
It is a day and a half, yes.
Yeah, and again,
Wait for the
it
weekend.
could very well be that this ends up being functional, but the idea is that like not every wormholer is occupying a C4, C5, C6. You know, we want it to be functional for all different size of people that want to engage in that content potentially. But we'll have to see, man. I guess my other point is that like in low sec, for example, the combined ability for capitals to destroy structures and structures, being more vulnerable, I think is only going to support Snuff's, capabilities of clearing out all of the other structures in low sec.
I would hope that Snuffed Out wouldn't actually do that. That seems really
I mean, they've
boring.
done it several times.
It's like already what they do, though.
Yeah,
The thing is,
every year or so, at least they just go through and start
Well, they go
wiping
on
out all the.
vacation. I know that.
Yeah, Snuffed Out's just like they're just tending to their crop of citadels that they will harvest on a yearly cycle. This just makes that harvest easier.
with the advent of
we need-
cores.
Harvest Siege Green once a year.
Like realistically, you
From a
already
faction
can't
warfare point of
stop
view, I love
Snuffed
it.
Out. Like Snuffed already have such an oppressive presence in low sec that when you look at it that way, it is once again CCP pulling up a ladder, but you kind of have to a
Hold
degree.
on. I have to address this. We just got raided by Sheltark Sakari, and seeing that I currently share his situation, CCP, where's my fucking partner, bruv?
Cheers, bruv.
It's too much. I can't handle it. Anyway, so at this point, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about wormholers and whether I actually care about their plights. realistically, when I think of wormholers, I often ask myself, are these people?
No, they're meerkat.
And that's okay. I just don't interact with a lot of wormholers, I guess. But anyways,
I
thanks
guess
for the raid,
my biggest
Sheltark.
thing is that they're basically making structures, especially medium structures, more or less disposable. You know,
Sure.
like at least in how they get applied, and yet they still require cores and everything like that. I think that even just making it so that they no longer require cores or significantly reducing the price of or medium structures cores would be useful.
The core is your
I mean-
incentive though to shoot it though. Like it's the ISK you get directly from shooting it. It's a direct like item to ISK conversion.
Right, but with
Or
them,
just
so
stop spamming
here's another way of
mediums.
putting it. You also have to do significantly less work for that ISK now too.
Yeah, but it's not a huge sum. It's like it's less than a billion ISK for the medium cores. It's like it's a paltry amount to any like even
Well, it's
mid-size alliance.
it's less than a billion. We're talking about structures that are like 600 million by
Yeah, but
themselves. Like the core is
still,
the biggest, sometimes more expensive than the structure.
That's less than a fit nightmare.
Well, no, I don't
Like,
think the core is ever.
But that
Not
doesn't
more than-
matter to the people that's a lot of money to.
Are we revisiting the core debate like 2 years later?
okay,
No,
but
what I'm
in the
saying
same-
is that I find it interesting that the disposability of structures, especially large structures, medium structures, was so significantly increased without the price tag of them changing.
But you also don't have like day one new bros and people that can't afford structures buying structures. Like the people in high sec that fly like these super blingy marauders, like I would assume that okay, if they have a small little corp and they do their stuff in high sec,
You do
like-
get those people in smaller wormholes, though. Is that not the whole point? Is that
Yeah.
there are
And
people who want to go live in like C2s that can't, or well,
But the boon to
Afford.
wormholes is you make insane ISK being in the wormhole. It gets high
very
risk.
dependent on what it is.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, like if you're just doing a reaction hole for R4 materials in a low class wormhole, you're not making that kind of ISK.
I mean, but you're still probably making pretty substantial ISK if you're playing in a wormhole. That's just kind of how it goes.
So if it requires let's assume that your operation requires a large structure, and your operation is for reactions, how long would it take for you to actually make the profit in order to do so? I think that it would take longer than it would take for somebody to find and destroy your structure, potentially. But that's, again, we're going to have to see how that plays out, personally. I think that that's a really good point, that with medium structures now being so blatantly less defensible than large structures, it helps communicate to even new players that, like, this is not your fortress. This is not your, like these things are meant to be destroyed on a long enough timeline, So when the relatively new corp gets then war decked by somebody, it's not as confusing that, like, well, you just dipped your toes in it and got swatted back.
I mean, I would contend that structure ownership isn't really like garnered towards new bros. Like if you're a newer player, usually you're either living out of stations in high sec or low sec, or you're joining a bigger group to get a feel for the game where you already have a bunch of pre-established structures. Am I wrong on that point?
Increasingly,
maybe-
especially with the war deck changes, I've seen a lot of people, like, it is a good, or it frequently becomes an early to mid-range goal for a newer corporation, right, that's building up. Like the very first thing to establish yourselves beyond just like a clutch of people is to have structures, or at least that's what a lot of people think. And so then they commit, they get their first right through, and then they get war decked by Black Flag.
Welcome to Eve. There's your lesson.
Absolutely, but that's my point. Like, if it's so, if they are even less defensible, if it is like understood that large structures, let me put it to you a different way. Like I said earlier, really what this is a new meta. In the old world, you could kind of rely on the mechanics to defend your stuff. At this point, you must defend any territory that you want to hold. Period.
Wasn't that how it should be,
No,
anyways?
that's how it should be. Like
Yes.
the changes as well should, like, in theory, should hurt the blocks who have, like, frankly, way too much space, right? Because all the perimeter stuff at the very edge of your empire, you may have to travel, 17 jumps to get to instead of 5, are much more vulnerable to attack and being farmed for the cores.
But that's the same thing. It's like it's still only 17 jumps for those big empires who will find a way to make it as short and as painless for them as possible. Like, I don't think this necessarily solves the empire's sprawl problem at all, even if it does
less Astra houses
benefit other
Athenors,
things.
and
Yeah.
they'll put Tataras on the double R64s and put a fort down, and that's it.
Well,
Maybe
but
that's
I
a
mean, that
resting
ignores the
Citadel.
fact that all of those, like, those structures are still now significantly less defensible.
So I do want to get some more perspective from like nullsec FCs. So Zentage, you were gracious enough to join us. What are your thoughts on these structure changes? How do you feel?
I think what you're originally going to see is you're going to see a lot of trolling. You're going to see, the 50-man bomber fleets just come and hit people's stuff. But it's eventually going to cool down. And what you'll see is you're going to see a lot more large structures and a lot less medium structures put places. And I think that's actually going to even help the T2 market, because you're not going to have an Athenor on every R16 anymore. It's just going to get trolled to death.
So how much does a Tatara cost?
Fit Tatara, last I checked, it
Or
was
fit.
6 to 7 bill.
Okay, so 7 bill. So if you want your moon to be protected, essentially, even in high sec, even in low sec, null sec, everywhere, you're gonna need like 8 bill, 9 bill to have a Tatara on your moon.
I mean,
Otherwise, you
more
can just get
investment,
ruined and trolled into
more
oblivion.
stake, more reward.
Guess so.
Like,
Wouldn't
the
it
thing is, too,
be?
is everyone gets rolled eventually. So if you invest more into infrastructure to have it safer in the short term, in the long term, when you inevitably lose a bunch of stuff, you end up losing more risk. So it's more risk, more reward.
Right, and I don't vintage. Do you think? Well, this maybe cryo too. Do you guys think that you guys are gonna put Tataras in all your moons in Delve?
That's a question for G-Soul, not me. But what I
I said,
will
what do
say
you
that
think?
interests me on these changes is that minus 75% medium structure amount. Because
Well, that's
that
because
really changes anchoring.
Yeah, true. It does, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
That
point.
completely changes the content Astra.
I had not thought about that at all, actually.
It might be worth as well to just like throw one dread at it too at the current, like, with the changing prices.
Does this not just upgrade the content Astra to a content Asbel?
Do a few of
I
those
mean,
lying
it
around.
might,
So
but
the thing is that people will probably still drop medium structures, just understanding that they blow up every once in a while.
Regarding your question about the Tara's red line, I doubt Horde will do a mass upgrade from Athenos to Tara's, but I'm not the person who makes that decision, so grain of salt.
Like, you'd have to lose half a dozen to a dozen Athenors before it actually is worth as much as a Tatara.
You got to factor in the fact you'll be losing frac time as well, though.
So,
And
like,
therefore-
I don't
fair.
see the Delve ones being upgraded, but, like, I could see, like, Locust and Period Basis, Aquarius, etc., those being Tataras instead.
Y'all
Yeah.
went up with how many
Really?
keep stars in Delve last time? I feel like you could do Tataras eventually.
You don't want to know how many forts we've already got back in
Yeah.
I
Delve.
also wonder how much the nerf to shields, like the fact that there's no damage cap on shields, will increase the amount of actual conflict. Because the problem is that like stripping the shields gives a timer that makes everybody have to pay attention. But the shield timer, like hitting the shields is kind of inconvenient. Like nobody ever catches, or very few people catch the shield timer necessarily.
I think it'll create content Astroth in a different way. So when you remove the damage cap, you create the incentive to use very big and very costly ships like nano supers and things like that to do them. And when you initially shoot the structure with your super, you're tackled there for a little bit, which gives a window to tackle you. I think
Right.
that'll be the content catalyst, is people trying to bait the nano supers on the content structures.
Like,
But when
the big thing
7
you're gonna
subcaps
see-
can reinforce a Riter in a minute,
Like 20 bombers can reinforce an Athenor in about 6 minutes.
Yeah, and you're not
I
gonna
mean, like you're
form.
not even going to need a Titan at that point.
Well, no one's gonna form for that. Like
Yeah, well, thing
You'll
is,
see a
right,
lot of
yeah, it's easy
rage
to get that
bombers
shield
making
ref
the
off.
initial timers.
But
It's fine to
but
get
the
that
point is
shield
that
ref
like a
off
single
initially.
Drek or Lashak could set up timers now, and
right.
but
Yeah,
more
follow up on that.
importantly, my point is that like they can just trigger more. Getting people to reinforce the shields is it by itself a big ask, right? It's a 20 to 30 minute process just to see what the timer is. If you've got a squad of like 10 to 20 people, it's now a 2-minute process.
Right.
I mean, isn't that good though? Like, it creates incentive for
Yeah,
groups to be
sure.
like strong individually outside of formed alliance fleets. If you're a go-getter, you can do it solo even.
Right.
A lot more dynamic content, I think. How it'll play out.
And that's what I mean by like I wonder if this will actually trigger more real fights, because let me put it a different way. The question is, how many engagements have been prevented because hitting the shields is too much of a bother? And I
I'd say
think
a
that
lot.
answer is actually a lot. Yeah.
I don't think so, because that's always been what it is. Like that's what you do. You hit the shield. You know you're probably not gonna get a fight on the shield, and then you expect the fight on the armor. That's just the
Right.
way
But I
structure
also would
matches
argue
go.
that that's always been the deterrent. That's my point.
The question there, Redline, is how many structures were never reinforced because how much of a chore it was to go do the shield timer.
Well, how could anybody possibly know that?
The answer is probably a lot.
We'll find out soon.
We'll find
Well, I
out
guess so,
very
yeah.
soon.
I mean, Fire might find out in about 2 weeks in patch day, I'd imagine.
I wasn't
Yikes.
asking the question to be answered. I was stating the question because that is the question that will be answered,
Yeah.
Do you guys think any keep stars will be troll ref? Like, let's say I take me and my 5 hyper hell buddies and we're like, LOL, let's reinforce the Dracaris keep star while they're asleep. Will that ever happen? I think it will at some point.
Oh, it'll be funny, but then
let
like,
me
the
form
big thing with
200
these,
bombers and go reinforce the Omus keep.
the big thing you have with
Dracarys
these,
Keep
right,
Star?
is sure you control ref, but then like follow up on it. Like that's everyone's like, oh, they're gonna come through and troll ref some stuff. It's like, okay, then follow up on it, and you're
Wait,
gonna see
right.
people just troll ref shit and go, okay, sweet, I'll move a recon over, and if someone goes to shoot it, then I'll form. I'm not gonna rage form for an Athenor in NPC delve.
See,
I'm
that's
confused.
the thing.
Did you say Dracarys Fortizar, or is that
Keep
Dracarys
Star.
the Alliance?
Dracarys,
I use
the
Dracaris as an
alliance.
example because they're a
Got it.
Chinese-based
Okay.
alliance, so
Sorry,
they'd
because
be
there's like
asleep
the
when.
Fortizar.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think too, it'll open up more potential to do like backline shenanigans. Like goons are deployed to Fatapolis right now. Maybe we have a wormhole group that wants to go poke Delve and Quarius and Fountain while Init's deployed, things like that, and try and kill our moons.
Well, and it could be a small group too. Like I'm just sitting here thinking about how it would be possible for goons to just reinforce an entire like constellation, maybe even a region in like a night.
Well, they could already do that.
Some
Didn't
kind
they
of
already
region
basically
that's
do that?
out somewhere. It's in some form of passage,
Oh
not
Didn't
no.
an inner passage.
Didn't
I mean,
they
y'all haven't
reach
rolled through Outer
Delve in like
Passage
some
yet.
sort of record time of like 4 days or something like that?
The problem with that red line is, sure, we can make 400 timers, let's say, but the problem is then we have to follow up with the damage capped 400 structures for armor.
Yeah, but every single one of those gives you a kill mail too. And let me tell you, getting people to show up to the armor timer and the shield timer, this is all a matter of bullshit, right? Like it's like they don't
Yeah,
feel like they
right.
get anything out of it.
Asherothi, I
tell-
have an entire war to tell you about how telling people there's a sweet structure kill mail at the end of it doesn't
Yeah.
really work long term.
Yeah.
Like it works for a bit and then it kind of stops.
I mean, I think
Well,
in general, if you tell your
I
dudes,
remember like the Imperium or somebody, like
on,
they
let Zach-
intentionally wove their timers in so that way they would have at least one structure timer per fleet, so that way they would have something to give to people. Because yes, the fact that there will be a kill mail isn't sufficient enough to motivate everybody long term, but not having the kill mail there is certainly it's like, well, what am I doing this for?
I definitely think that if you're in a big alliance and the AFC's like kill mail guaranteed, you'll definitely get a few more dudes. Completely, if you're like, we're going to do a shield reinforce, you're paying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in a big alliance, it might be the difference between like a 50-man fleet or a 100-man fleet or whatever it is. But in a smaller group, it might be the difference between being able to form or not.
Oh, I mean, usually you get the shield reinforced for free because they don't know you're going for it until you're shooting it. Then you have to react very quickly.
So how many shacks was it to ref the T2T keep starting?
50, I think was said.
Yeah, 50 would comfortably give you the damage cap at current mechanics.
18 minutes to ref with 50 Lashaks doing 2k each. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to see too many surprise refs of keep stars, I think.
Yeah, and the Keepster still has weapons too, right? And maybe some dudes form like tornadoes, and you have enough to volley the shacks. You can make it really costly for them.
Undock Titan.
Can't get
them
Doomsday
with guns.
for the keep star, which is great.
Yeah, I wonder how many Titans it would take to just literally one-shot a Keepstar shield.
1,000 avatars was the actual rough math I saw. You
I
can do it
can't
with
believe-
250 rags.
I can't believe somebody did the math
Yeah.
though.
Why the fuck wouldn't I not? Yeah, it's about 200. You can
So-
do it with about 300 artillery rags with Quake.
So if you want to think about Titans and memes, imagine lancing a Keepstar however many times, which is what,
Yes, a lance would also count, and that does a shit ton of damage.
or a bosun.
I don't think a bosun might not work so easily.
You have
Well,
to be
might.
close. You have to be close to it, but it would apply, right?
Yeah, it'd apply, but I think the lance would be more consistent. But you can, if you could, in theory, like just drop 300 rags with Quake, shoot it, and then leave. Like by the time you're capped up, you've already refed it. Like that's insane.
Like, I think it's, I don't know. How many fights have you guys got that were like insane fights on the shield timer? I can't think of any off my head.
There was a couple in a little Astra house that Brother Bob transferred us.
Which one? Oh, the one in NOL, right?
The NOL Astra House of Legends, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I've seen one of those. I should know that. Yeah, no, that's reasonable.
I've highlighted a message in the chat, which I love. From
But
CB.
by and large, Redline, like I don't think shield timers cause many fights. I think damage capping move is really good for the game. It's just less like space work.
Yeah, no,
Oh, yeah, I
I'm
think
with
that's
you on that.
the most unequivocally like good part of this patch.
And I think
Yeah,
the lack
no.
of damage cap too, and like people will use creative ways to damage cap it that probably cost a lot of ISK, and putting like generally speaking more big ships in space shooting things is good for the game because it's more targets for you to go for.
Yeah. No,
Ready
I
to defend?
agree with that. Like 100% I'm with you. I'm just so what I'm thinking about is just these on these medium structures. I'm thinking about fights that we've seen over them and whether those fights would have still happened. That's what I'm trying to think of. Cuz I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, Astros will be a bit more dynamic, I think, because like you can.
I mean, I don't think you're just gonna see Astros in space anymore.
Yeah, I think they'll still exist, but I think the volume is going to be reduced pretty drastically, pretty quickly. Like some of the big groups have like an Astra in every system, or like one on every major gate and things like that. I think those will disappear pretty quickly. But I
So
could be
is it
wrong.
so what are you going to replace your content Astra with? Your content Retaru?
Content Asbel, we have a few of those in store.
No way you do an
Yeah, Pappy still
Asbel,
got a whole
dude.
pile.
No,
Asbel's-
there's no way you do an
Okay, so-
Asbel.
Wait,
Come
why
on.
wouldn't
If you look at-
Astra Who's work for content again?
Like Asbels are what, 3 bill to build? What's the core?
Why
3
won't they
build?
work, you're asking?
Yes, that's what he
It's
asked.
because
Yeah, what's
they're
wrong with them?
losing 75% of their structure hit points.
Right, but by that time you've already gotten the content, right?
Okay,
No.
so no, because the thing is, let's say show up the fight over that. What are you gonna do when we're setting up for this fight, and I just show up in nightmares at Aurora range,
I see what
blap
you're
your
saying.
structure,
So
and just leave?
the argument is that no structures will ever be reinforced, or Astra Who's won't be anchored because they're too easy to clear off and anchoring.
The issue is like hostile anchoring something under guns is going to be very difficult. Like just and possibly even like that Fortizar we anchored under the hostile 3 pandemic horde fleets and test small gang.
Well, the
one?
Fortizar would be fine because the Fortizar is not losing HP. It's a matter of
But
like
if it
a
was
content
wasn't it-
Astra, like the troll Astras we would do in like Curse and such.
I think that
Oh,
the
the
honest
JTT one?
solution is to go back to posses. Like for that, I'm not joking.
Yeah, posses definitely have renewed possibilities, I think. Because, you can't just... Posses have a lot of HP, right? So direct when you have to commit dreads to do it in any reasonable time frame, usually, which is also good.
like a large pass is like similar shield HP to a Keemstar.
Yeah, it's like 90 million, I think, for a hardened one.
So the content as bills make your return, huh?
But it's good though, because you're staking more ISK on field, so you get more reward if it onlines, but the attackers get, the juicy core and the frag and the salvage and stuff they frag it. It's just more stake, which is good for the game.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to content pauses.
Thing is, too, when you look
Again-
at the price of structures relative to the fleets defending them, like some of the ships flown nowadays, like a single subcap is worth more than an Astra House in some of the fleets that have been flown recently that I've seen. So maybe it's a good thing that structures cost more in aggregate.
I think it really boils down to they're pushing more and more towards if you want to blow something up, you got to do the work. If you want to defend something, or if you want to have something, you got to be willing to defend it, right? Like, and it really is encouraging more active gameplay. If you don't have what it takes to hold that territory, then you just don't get to if somebody else is.
Do you think this helps smaller groups at all? Like, let's say I'm based in like Curse or Venal or one of the NPC nullsec.
I actually think it's possible that it could, because so here's the thing. A lot of the complaints about like, oh, well, this allows it to be way easier to smash a smaller group, or, Rick's Javix was pointing out that, Snuff would come and destroy all the structures easier. And I'm like, how does an extra timer prevent that from happening? Right? Like, I mean, besides it's extra bullshit, argument.
Well, because
Just-
it
Like
makes
if
it take less time.
if they were that overwhelming to you, if they were just going to steamroll you anyways, it doesn't really matter how.
Speaking on a personal anecdote on some stuff our corp's been doing, if this changes in a month ago, there's multiple more structures that we would have blown up just by the fact of it's always that last time that they'll bat phone everyone they can possibly think
Now-
of that they wouldn't necessarily do before.
Also
Now
at the
that's
same
the-
time, it makes it easier for smaller groups to then blow their own stuff up. So like if you've got a big empire, let's say Horde, and they've got structures on the outer edge of their empire, and you have a small group that's constantly going in and hitting their structures, like it's just going to make it more difficult.
I am positive that Horde will lose some medium structures in drone lands that are just overlooked due to volume at some point.
As far as smaller groups though go, what I'm really encouraged by is the fact that this actually gives a big advantage to smaller groups in their ability to do damage to larger groups, because now they have to actually defend it. There's less mechanical defense, so a small group can do real damage.
It wouldn't be
or
like
at least
lasting
require
damage,
attention.
though.
What?
It wouldn't be like lasting damage. Like,
But
yeah, I'd blow up a structure.
I mean, they
and
start
these big
blowing up
groups just
structures. I mean,
replace
like,
But it would be damage
I mean-
nonetheless, and they get a payout.
that's more than like the
payout
question
that we were
was,
just
is this
talking
going to
about
be
was
good or
less
bad for
than
smaller
subcaps.
groups? And yeah, if a smaller group wants to hold sovereignty, may or may not, but like a lot of smaller groups want to be able to like, go for the jugular, or be a little bit more agile than that. So to those people, I think that it'd be advantageous, because again, they're not going to win the war. They just want to, make their enemy bleed.
Well, and I mean, it's also like it's basically the equivalent of killing like some big ratting ship at that point. I mean, like a couple days later, but still, you'd come
Well,
in,
so like
deploy near somebody's space, and just go in and just kill anything, really.
You know,
It's
now we
medium
need
structure.
CCP to do is nerf jump bridges.
Now,
Yeah.
how would they go and do that? That's a different conversation. And
Okay. Blue and red salmon off of a jump bridge.
there's several really good methods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a few, but just nerf them, and then you will see empires get shredded on their borders.
Yeah,
And-
the second the second they add any kind of mechanic to delay people from doing like quarter rotations around the edge of New Eden in 10 minutes, you will see the giant blocks break up to some degree, 100%.
The real thing about the jump bridges is that in the same spirit of things, they just need to be less defensible, right? Like they just need to be, if you don't show up to get it back online or to defend it, then it's easy for somebody, or a small group rather, to disrupt a gate network, right? Like
It's more about the initial reinforced Eshtaroth is usually the problem, because if I can get from MJ TAC to EFM and Smother in 5 minutes, I can just ping for mutants and have 100 mutants and your gang has to leave immediately. It's
Right,
getting the initial reinforces harder than getting the second timer usually.
that's my point. You don't actually need the second timer at all in Flex, because once you've taken out the first timer, the gate itself is down. So that's my point.
Yeah,
Is
but no,
that
I'm like,
if they made
I'm
it
only,
easier,
I'm 4 jumps away from you and not 1.
I will say what they didn't clarify. If you read that, it says all upwell structures will have their shield damage cap removed.
Does that
Yeah.
include
About
flex
jump
structures?
bridges.
actually, let me double check. I can check Hobo Leaks right now.
My
Okay.
understanding was they did not impact flex structures.
I don't
Those
think
flex
they
structures
will,
aren't
but
an
if they
upwell structure, are
did,
they?
that's a big change.
I highly
As
doubt
of
that
right
they
now,
would.
it does. Well, they changed even the flex structures to have a DPS threshold to pause shield repair, armor repair, and hull repair.
So our friend
But-
CCP Kestrel says that flex structures are unaffected by it.
Okay.
Uh,
Speaking of which, CCP Kestrel put out an amazing, just high-level breakdown of the industry changes on the main Reddit thread. So really do appreciate that. Because the problem is that when you're looking at numbers, it's sometimes hard to suss out the real impact of things. You have to do a whole bunch of math. So when he says like, oh, well, this is now 60% less, you're like, oh, okay, that makes so much more sense.
So, and I did actually save that comment as well so that we could look at it right here. This is the TLDR of the spreadsheet, right? We've already kind of seen this with that cost comparison too.
Yeah, I just mostly wanted to give props since he's here.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
What we haven't seen though is the dankest drama of the week that I'll put on screen right now. How dare the Goon CSM allow the structures to be changed now that they're on the offensive?
That
I mean, it certainly helps them. Like, it would have, this would have been based and we were attacking, but I think it's a good gameplay change. Like, I'm not going to cry about it in that sense.
the thing is, there's never going to be a time to put this change in that it doesn't look like it's helping someone.
Yeah, like if
I
you were
would give
complaining
you-
that you did it now rather than during the war, then you're just admitting that you wanted an easier time to AFK grind structures and delve.
If you remember, they were talking about the fact that they had a change that they wanted to make, but then they couldn't because of the fact that it was in the middle of the war, or they didn't want to.
I mean, they
don't know
made
if
some
this was
enormous
something
changes
else.
during the war, like the
Right, but this would have
scarcity
been
nerf.
this would have
WD change on
broken.
hacks was actually quite big.
Yeah.
But the thing is that like I see this as another in a long line of Pappy arguments that really end up like, are you
Pappy's
sure
dead,
that?
Asher. I think Pappy's
are you-
dead.
My
Well,
brother,
okay,
my
whatever.
brother, this is not a Pappy argument. This
It's
is
the name
a
of the
this
Reddit
person
post.
argument.
Okay, fine. It's a continuation of this argument where like, are you sure you want to argue it that way? Because like it doesn't make you look good. Basically, it boils down to they like, so here's the thing. Let's just think about it this way. Who was more impacted? Who had the larger capital / super capital production program prior to this? Imperium or Imperium's enemies? Chances are it was Imperium.
Yeah.
So Imperium would be probably the most impacted by this, by the industry changes. Their production
Well,
was
okay, so
Look, is
In
this
a
Pappy in
vacuum-
the room with us right now?
My point is that it basically boils down to we didn't have enough funds, we didn't have enough resources to make this attack. Which I'm not sure if that's the argument that you really want to make, because it's basically the same thing that we've heard
I
don't
over
think
and
that's
over
the
and
argument
over
that
again.
It's
anyone-
argument at all. Like I was one
This
of
is
the dudes
why it was
who
called
ran the
Money
campaign.
Badger Coalition, because they keep running out of money every time they attack.
The biggest complaint I heard was that the server limitations don't physically allow enough people to be on the same grid fighting at the same time the server dying.
Are these
I've heard
server
that too.
limitations in the room with us right now, Johnny?
They might be.
I've heard
Leave
that too.
man
I don't know
alone.
if I believe the evidence behind that.
I'm just saying what I've heard. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything. Like,
Right, that's fair. But I mean, like, this isn't what that's about. This is about, but you know, they made it harder for them at the
like
time. But it
in
was
general, I
financially
think
harder.
it's probably like okay. So nullsec has generally been stagnant now for like a few years prior to World War B or whatever we're calling it, the Great Pappy War, the Great War. And I think
Vietnam.
that anything, Vietnam, yeah, anything that makes structures blow up more and solve and change hands more often is probably good for the game in general. Like I feel like when the game stagnates, people aren't interested to do stuff. They aren't like tracking the big fights, any news happening.
Yeah, I think that we just need to get used to a different reality. It's not that nobody will use Athenors anymore, or nobody will use Astrohuses. It's just like we just need to understand that this is just how defensible structures are now. You know, like that's just the reality of it. That's why I keep saying that this isn't a change to the meta. This is a new meta. This is a new way of like thinking about how warfare is conducted. And I want to stress that this isn't even this is not FanFest announcements, right? They still have an entire FanFest worth of announcements in theory to go over. This is just a precursor, which is wild.
Right. And now this is, so they said at FanFest there's going to be way more stuff. And if this is what the kind of stuff they're releasing before FanFest, I kind of wish I was going, so I found out first.
I really think that what's happening here is that they are now locking in how we fight and turning on the green light, right? Like for the last couple of years, production on all these things have been artificially cut off in various different ways. And this is really the go ahead. This is the on your marks, get set, go of it restarting again. I think that what they're going to show at FanFest is what we're fighting for. The rewards, the content, the things that are going to actually like be about the territories and the stuff and why we fight. Whereas now this is how we fight.
I
So
hope
if anyone
That's
wants
nice.
to lease some fresh farmlands in Faithabolis, please contact my friend Alterari Phoenix. He will be able to help you out.
All I'm asking for from CCP is that Ragnarok remodel already.
Yeah, please.
Oof.
Fuck. I want a nicer looking Titan.
You know, there's a lot of people that claim like they're waiting on an art thing, and probably that one's the most legitimate.
Give Angel Dread win.
That one's the least legitimate.
Oh
you
yeah,
guys-
brother.
I
think you
want
guys
that
gotta
vertical
calm
Titan
down.
so bad, dude. I will become the next
I
Math
know.
credit card warrior, that shit.
I have to remind everybody the massive gulf between a concept art and the actual production of something.
Right. So
Yep.
there was something that I saw in chat. Where was it? Valamir. Valamir says there's nothing he can say at FanFest that will soothe the rage and depression in his heart. How do we make him feel better?
See a wormholer, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, again, that goes back to the how we fight thing, right? Like this is the big thing about FanFest, right? Like we've had 2 years of scarcity, and most of that, if not, all of that was while we were going through a pandemic. So we had no events, which are our normal methods of like communication and kind of syncing up with the Eve devs and kind of getting a better understanding of things. So, you know, it's been a pretty painful process, to be honest. And I think that this is the question that has to be asked is, what was this all for, right? Why did we go through all of this? And so, like, that's why I said, like, introduction of new content, introduction of new kind of reinvigorate us as to why we play Eve, not just how we blow things up. or how the balance of power goes or whatever. Like, what makes us interested in the New Eden universe and EVE Online in the first place? Not in the old school.
I mean, I think it depends on who you ask, but I would say that like compelling content, meaning content you care about, then you can get with some degree of frequency.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it'll be like, we know that new sites are coming. We know that new content and stuff like that is coming. We'll just have to see what that looks like and whether or not it truly does inspire people and whether or not it answers the question of, was this all worth it?
Is that why in the meantime everybody comes to Brave Space?
I think everybody goes to Brave Space because Brave likes to fight. Isn't that right?
It's true.
Also,
Well,
you were the first person to ever join the Discord and join the voice channel and actually say something.
Well, you know, I've been in multiple Discords and alliances over the years, and you know, my job in Brave is to talk to people, so I'm not afraid to jump into the fray.
Oh, so you're in Brave. Welcome to the show, my friend. Good to have
Where's
you here.
Mav? Where's Mav?
He's gone. He left.
Mav is going out for cigarettes, and
Not Mavel.
No, Mav doesn't go
Yes.
for cigarettes. He goes up for Macca's and Coke Zero.
Yes, Mavel.
Oh, the second grade FC that we got rid of. Okay.
Uh-oh, here we go. So you may not know this, but we do also a show on Tuesdays called Trash Talk Tuesday. That might be better suited for that show.
Well, as a former B Crow member, I cannot. I would probably get kicked
I forgot
out.
about that.
Oh,
I genuinely forgot about that.
Yeah, just like you genuinely forgot that I was an FC at some point in my life.
Well, I knew you were at some point. I just didn't know you did for Brave. Or do you for Brave?
Well, no, because I'm a fucking diplomat now.
Feel that?
I pew with words.
Slightly tangential, but going back to the idea of like starting everything back up again, not only is everything going to be cheaper, but this has kind of gone a little bit unnoticed. The components are also going to be significantly smaller. The auto integrity preservation seals are going from 45 to 16. The core temperature regulators, which are the key piece of like battleships and go into capital core temperature regulators, are going from 1,000 to 180. And life support backup units are going from 100 to 45. So not only are these things going to be easier to build, but they're also going to be easier to export and import.
I mean, do you think? I thought components were largely built locally, like where you're physically producing the capital or super capital.
Well,
Due to volume.
I mean, so the thing is that it requires a lot of our reaction stuff. And so the assumption I'm assuming that a lot of that R4 is going to be dealt with in and around HiSec using things like low-class wormholes or low-sec, places. That way they can do those interactions, and then they'll build like core temperature regulators to sell on the market. It's very easy to move those, and then they can turn the core temperature regulators into the capital core temperature regulators locally. But unless they want to start mining a whole bunch of R4, spend their time mining R4s, they might not build it locally. I mean, like do the reactions locally.
Right, sure.
Well, so what else do we think about this stuff? I guess I planned on the show being about 90 minutes. I think we've been on for about 90 minutes, so...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, caveats in general where there could be things that don't work out good for some people, but like on the whole, this is all pretty good.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the fact that there's some people that are showing concern. I mean, like, there's not going to be a solution where everybody's like, yep, this is exactly it. Like, that is actually impossible because people have conflicting, needs. But as far as like just a really good solution goes, this seems to be it.
Someone said my name.
I'd like to welcome Maval Dorgers back
Hello,
to the
Mav.
cesspool today.
Has someone
Yo.
passed on to you the Komodo news?
Yeah, I don't care. It's still Villy's Komodo Lamel.
Hey, it's just a good thing CCP is actually doing something. Something is better than nothing ultimately. And Maville, it's nice to see you. I hope you've gotten better as an FC while you've left Brave.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, you guys literally have to be handed stuff on a plate. Your supers are stuck in a free port. Like, your alliance is so dog shit that they've promoted you to Diplo. That's how bad.
I
like,
love
Brave
the fact
is.
that Math has rejoined this Discord and the first thing he's doing is shitting on Brave. It's so on brand.
To be fair, Brave asked for it here. Hachu came in here.
Well, see, the thing that he forgets is I was a Diplo when he was in Brave, and I've actually been promoted to other essential.
Oh yeah, but wasn't that mostly you just getting in trouble with Dunk then, though?
Yeah, pretty much. That's my understanding of it.
No, I'm 2 IC of Diplo now.
Jesus Christ. That's embarrassing.
Did you say 2 IC of Diplo?
Yes, he did.
My experience with Diplos is it's people who aren't good enough to do anything of actual merit.
Hello,
Hey,
I'm the
pretty
assistant to the
much.
regional manager's assistant.
As respectfully as possible, what in the actual fuck does the 2 IC of Diplo do?
Well, I guess if you're the 2 IC of Diplo, you're the first up that's not AFK for Brave.
Well,
Yeah.
for the most part, I essentially act as the public face of the Diplo Corps because the head Diplo, he does things behind.
He's AFK.
So, well, he's behind the scenes working. He just doesn't come on comms every day with everyone.
So he's
else.
AFK. is
Oh,
what you're
he's
saying.
AFK.
Okay,
yeah.
so this is literally the Wizard of Oz kind of story where
Yeah.
you are the man behind the curtain at this point.
Well, no,
So
at the
you're
current
the
point,
two-
I'm the man in front of the curtain.
So you're the 2 IC.
Yeah,
But
you're the one saying
you're-
pay no mind to the man behind the curtain.
But you're doing everything that the 1 IC would do, right?
Essentially, with some circumstances,
So-
the things I
so then
can't
you're
do.
the 1
Basically,
IC.
They don't trust
He's
you
the,
enough.
he's the person that gets blamed.
They
Okay.
don't trust him enough to be the 1 IC. So the person who is AFK not doing their job, they keep him in the role as like a
babysitter.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, pretty
A
much. And then
babysitter.
they have him like, and they're like, yeah, you can like kind of do your job, but like you're not going to be given the title you need to do it.
That's not
So this
exactly adequately true, Maville. But I mean,
Okay.
you can stretch it out however you would like to fit a narrative that you're very good at and you get on a roll sometimes. But ultimately speaking, it's like, I work with the new members of the Diplo Corps. I get them trained up to par with what we're looking for. I work with them on these situational issues that occur that they need assistance
The
with.
situational issues. This is the alliance, by the way, that left Legacy and said we're going to like stop doing null politics. But like, yeah, I guess.
Mav, not to
Diplo
show
is
too
still a
hard,
thing.
but who has higher weekly actives, Brave or Test?
Oh yeah, Brave,
Ooh.
of course. Like, it's no secret. Test is having a bad time right now.
I'm sorry, but
it's
is test even relevant?
It's still, incredibly easy to shit on Brave, and Hachu, Test will still be relevant because we actually have supers in our Keep Stars. Oh yeah, we own Keep Stars, and you live in a fucking.
wait.
You also
fraternity
only own Keep Stars because you
report.
live in bumfuck nowhere
Wait a
under
second.
Horde's umbrella.
Yeah, but we
Mav,
live there,
isn't-
and Brave lives in
Mav?
Pureblind. They choose to live in Pureblind. We choose to live in Outer Pass. Okay, maybe we're like, living
Mav,
thanks to Horde.
Mav, isn't your Komodo in a Horde keep star?
It actually isn't.
Oh.
Yes.
So, Vel, so you're saying you're going to stay in Test, meaning you're the only one that's not riding Billy's cock all the way up to Horde?
Woof.
I mean, there's a few corps that haven't left actually, but
Test
yeah,
dropped below 9,000 members the other day for the first time in probably 15 years.
we all know
Under
those
9,000.
numbers. Those numbers actually aren't that important, to be
Mav,
honest.
did you see my special GIF in Cesspool?
Is it the one you just? Oh my
Yes.
god, that's amazing! What the fuck? I'm starring that. I'm gonna use that a lot.
So I don't think setting members really matters that much. The only number that matters is how many dudes you can get in fleet.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, it's no open secret that Test's forms aren't always great. Like, Yeah,
Pretty rarely great at this point.
but you know, it was still good enough to dread bomb Brave.
How many
Yeah.
months ago was that?
It was a while ago.
How much
but,
smaller
you know,
is
How
Test
many of
now
those
than they
dreads
were
were
then?
actually
How
horde?
many of those
Yeah,
were
that
horde
too.
dreads?
It was a small
I
corp
will
realm.
have
I took my corp for a run on
Yeah.
a Friday night.
Well, just put some caps for a wormhole, okay?
It's just a casual corp roam of dreads.
Yeah.
Oof. Man, look at that.
I mean-
the difference between Brave and Test.
It's
Just
crazy
okay.
though, like no matter what they say, all I have to say is your supers live in a free port, ours live in a keep star. Like you are still an
On a
irrelevant
couch.
alliance.
Maybe
Yours live on a couch.
Now.
We at least own the couch though, Jacob.
maybe when the patch hits the Freeport keep will get reinforced and Brave will have a nice reaction to that.
Oh,
So just out of curiosity, just thinking outside the box here. So
Sure.
because your supers are in a keep star, y'all are king on Earth creation. Now, mind you, our supers and whatnot are somewhere else. We have
They are in the Eurasian free port.
Hold on. Our supers are somewhere else, not
In the
readily
Eurasian
accessible.
free port.
And we've taken Sov 2 constellations
No,
by
you were
ourselves.
given Sov. You were given Sov, and then you had to diplo your way out of the fight with Bandalogs because you guys are dog shit.
Mav, I believe Test's usual response to claims like this would be invade Pureblind about it.
I was about to say, wait, wasn't Test given Sov after the war?
No, tests were not given solved. Just a number of iHubs and TCUs were SD'd at a set pre-agreed upon time.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
different. Totally different.
Very
But they had to
convenient.
take it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Conquest.
All I'm hearing is that, Brave decided, we're gonna go out and live on our own and do our own thing, which I mean, you got to give them credit for, and they're surviving. Whereas Test went and they hid with Horde. I'm not saying that Tests are bad for doing that. I'm just saying why you hating on Brave for doing that when you did something pretty much equally as bad in my mind. And it's not even saying it's bad. It's just a different strategy. And Brave is making it work. So you got to give him props
the
for
theme
that.
of this whole change being that it's not what you have, it's who you have. It's about manpower more.
All right, I'm leaving. Have fun dunking on
See you,
Brave. Some more
Cryo.
Mav. See you later. Got a meeting to go to.
Not having the blue donut is literally the most fun I have had playing Eve in years. Not having to travel through 25, 30 jumps to go find content when literally I can go 5 jumps and I'm in Losec, or I can go 3 jumps over here and there's guys to shoot over here. All of our neighbors, we have diplomatic
Want
ties
to
with
kill
them.
you. Yeah, we know.
But
Yeah, I agree. Poachman's awesome.
Call on them if we need it, but it's ultimately, we'll go there and get good fights with them, have a good day, say, see you, I'll see you tomorrow or something, have a good day. And then, some big gang will come through, like Horde on occasion, they've come through and we get good fights from them. They're very respectful, and I've always had good relationships with Horde and Goblins and them. So it's they'll come in. Volta will see them come in. Volta will bring a fleet and engage Horde while we're engaging them because common enemy, no offense. But it's more fun.
And so, how does this affect the structure changes? And
It means it'll be easier for
capital
Test to
changes?
come up and blow up all the Brave structures when they invade Pureblind about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yikes. Diva could probably do
Unironically,
it.
I think it's starting to be a good idea. It might actually be a closer fight.
I
than you want.
mean, so it's actually, I think there is actually quite a lot of potential for funny business in Pureblind, given the fact that they don't have any supers, Lamau. There's an NPC station up there. Maybe we have some dreads up there. Maybe
Reveal the location of the Pureblind cache, Mav.
Oh yeah, good
Top
point.
secret.
Of course,
maybe
the first thing Mav does when he returns to the cesspool is shit on Brave. The second thing he does when he returns to the cesspool is fucking leak.
Yeah, so maybe there's a big dread cache in Pureblind that we've been working on for many months. Who knows?
Well, I mean, we didn't lose any last time, so it's still intact.
Yeah, true. And so with the damage cap now removed, there's the potential for basically just dropping all your caps on a like an R64, for example, reffing it, and then just leaving before anyone can do anything.
So, like,
I mean, if you wanted to ref Athenor before anyone could do anything and leave, you could already do that.
So what I'm hearing is
Without the
that Test is
damage
going to
cap,
go
though,
shoot
like-
Brave because they can't keep a hold of Faith of Ballis. Is that what I'm hearing?
Faith is floodplains, okay? No one cares
Oh,
about
God.
floodplains.
God.
Genuinely, like...
There's nothing of
it's
value
not-
worth defending in
Yeah.
Deathless. There's not a single large structure in there. There was like 5 Fortizars, and I think they're all dead or like on whole timer at this point.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I
It's the
think they're all
Mav
dead now.
Tawny and Johnny
no,
Yeah, I was
Rubal.
about to say, it is the
Genuinely,
Mav
like-
Tawny.
It's the Mav
Genuinely,
Tawny
can you
and
imagine
Johnny
wanting to
Rubal,
burn-
dude.
Imagine wanting to burn through an entire region of structures that are uncontested. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw a goon ping the other day where it was like, we've got 60 timers today.
we did
Fuck
I'd say that's
that.
literally what Pappy
Wait a
did during
second.
the
We did
entirety of the
quick
war.
math. So Redline, we did the quick math and like the total value of all the cores in Faith, and it's like 100 bill. Like it's a very small sum relative to like the amount that would be lost fighting like 8 regions away from wherever Fire lives.
Well, it's worth it for the content, though, right? So like,
It's
nothing...
not really good content, though.
It was good content until Supers got moved.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and
So-
so didn't you like? I know you guys didn't move supers, but that side of the fight moved supers first.
So
Wait.
Init moved their supers down in response to the JTAC-T Dread Brawl. I assume, like, my perception is, and this is speculation, is that they realized we had a lot more Dreads than they thought we did, and they were like, oh, we should move our supers and Titans down to get the advantage, and then there hasn't really been an escalation since.
So, like, funny little thing here. When the war was on its final verge, and we got the whole ping about the whole, let's do the final push. We're gonna do the final push in the 1D cube. We're gonna win the war. 3 days before all that kicked off, I'm sitting the Sino system one jump out of staging, and all of a sudden I see this massive fleet of test capitals come flooding into system, and I'm like,
What has this got to do with Faith of Ballis?
Nothing. He just seems to be really on test now. Thanks, Mav.
Yeah.
So I'm going to develop a little history. You guys got off on a little.
We were literally talking about Faith.
So all this talk about structures made me think about, like, anybody else notice that it's kind of odd that there's no announcement about asset safety in this? I thought that was one of the things that they had like brought up as one of the things that would be touched on this. Yeah, that's my point. There's an asset safety sized hole in this announcement that makes me a little bit nervous.
What would you want changed?
I don't think so.
This isn't about what I want. This is a difference between what they said this was going to be versus what it is, right?
What would you imagine they would change?
Did they say they were revisiting asset safety?
At the very start, let's say no asset safety for supers.
I mean, that's a great change. That's a great change, I think.
That's the very start, though.
Yeah, because that's the violation. That's the thing that is breaking the earlier design of the game.
I mean, I think that would be a tremendous change, but I personally have pilots that I can coffin in the Super and Titan that I own.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I see that doing anything to is people that went AFK from the game.
I see it doing something to two things. People that went AFK and the player count. Like, even if it's a good change, that would make people quit.
If you go AFK, then you need to be in your Titan. You don't get to have your Titan cache protected for free while you're AFK. That isn't. Titans were never designed to be that secure.
So the main argument for coffin supers and titans is it basically raises the barrier of entry to having a fully coffinable pilot that flies your super carrier or your titan and only that ship and lives in it.
What I'm saying is that you have to make a choice now, right? Like, if you're going to go AFK, you can theoretically make sure that one super gets absolutely saved. But like, the idea that you can asset safety it, the idea that it goes into structures, the idea that there is no actual, you cannot actually strip somebody of their Titan cache unless they're willing to commit it to the field. It's such a big change.
I guess the design is cache by killing their Titans and forcing them to give the cache to the dudes who lost Titan.
Does anyone even have a Titan cache now? Like,
yeah, we still have Titans.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
just saying,
still
like
Titan
the idea
caches,
of
but
the
the
words
thing
Titan
is,
cache to me shows that there's something terribly wrong.
I mean,
the problem is the changes you're suggesting are unlikely to do anything because those Titan caches are in staging keep stars.
So just to be clear, wait, hold on. Sorry?
The
Because they're
Titan
in
caches are in
like, so
staging.
anyone
yeah,
who
right, but
has
staging keep stars can be taken out. That's the whole. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Realistically,
I don't know if there's an
the big
alliance with a
groups-
Titan
Make
cache
them
that
as
can also
safe as
have
you
their
can
staging
make
keep
them.
star
the
killed.
groups that reasonably will have Titan caches that are like more than 2 or 3 Titans would be like Goon Swarm, Horde, FRT, those like NC Dot, those kind of groups that are very well established and have very like deeply entrenched staging systems.
Why
First
didn't
of
you
all-
say test then, Johnny?
I'm sorry, I forgot. It's on my mind.
First of all, like I said, I'm not saying that I think that this like absolutely should happen or anything like that. What I'm saying is that they, if I remember correctly, when they first were talking about these structure changes that were going to come down the line, asset safety was one of the things cited by name as one of the things that they were unhappy with, and it has been called out multiple times in the past. So
I think a better
I just
solution would
find it
be
odd that there's
so-
no change to that.
I'm
Instead
just
of-
saying on your exact point of Titan caches and asset safety, realistically, the servers can't handle the kind of fights needed to take on a Sino-jammed staging constellation. So they're not really at risk.
Then there's no problem with making that change.
I think there's bigger, like, sorry, not better. I think there's better ways that aren't as punitive to change that. Like the main problem I have with asset drops is like, let's say someone's AFK for real life. They're deployed for military. They're in the hospital because they have health issues. It shouldn't punish the people who have real life issues.
Titans cannot be that safe. You've never in the history of Eve before the Keep Stars been able to have multiple Titans safe without having multiple Titans to be able to sit in them.
The problem is though that Keepstars have been around for 5+ years now, and it's one of those things where it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Like it's going to infuriate.
We already did it once. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, like abandoned structures did that to countless people.
To be clear as well,
Titan people so much more important than all those people that in HiSec that put their stuff in free ports.
I think it would be better.
Titan's more important than all of the structures that got sucked into Poachfin. Everybody else had to deal with it.
How
Why
many
can't you deal
Titans
with
do
that
you
change?
have, Ashtarathi?
Say again?
How many Titans do you have?
None.
That's why.
So
No. I'm talking about the game design concept. Here's the thing. Let me ask you a different question. Why can't Titans just dock in stations then? Because the entire point of that has been undermined.
Because you're right, they can't be that safe. But that's the thing, is you don't understand it because you don't have one. If you had one, you would understand that having one does take a lot of work, regardless of how cheap they were before. Having a Titan and having the auxiliary characters that go with it's hard work.
That's always been true.
It does need to be safe. If
that's always been true. No.
If your
Why
Nestor,
does it need to be safe? It
if your
wasn't. It didn't need
Nestor
to be
gets
safe
to be
before.
safe in this Citadel, then my Titan should be safe in that Citadel.
There's difference too between dying in combat and like breaking your leg, being in the hospital, freaking your Keepstar getting blown up or something to that effect. You under control.
I think that if somebody can put your stored Titans at risk, then they should be able to.
So would it not be a better solution to just vastly increase asset safety retrieval fee to like 40% instead of 15%, and just like jack the cost up to the point where it is punitive towards the alliance, not the members in that case?
Wait,
I think that we should undo the damage and make it so that Titans don't end up in structures anymore.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Coffin super caps would solve a lot of issues, but I'm someone who has a pretty expensive account setup.
I'd be willing to even concede that like the base asset safety would be allowable, but the low sec asset safety is absurd.
When you say the base, you mean like the on grid? Like if I have a Citadel?
Yeah, if you have another Citadel in the same structure, in the same station.
To me, that's even more egregious than the low sec one. Like the low sec one is intended to like not bone the people who are fully AFK, basically.
But again, it's about whether or not the game itself has to rely, like the simulation comes first. So my point is that an asset safety to another keep star in the same structure, in the same system, is better because it's not a violation. a Titan being asset safetied into a station is a violation. It makes it so that Titans can be hibernetted. It makes it so that Titans can be sold on the market. It fundamentally
No one
changes
sells
Titans in a way.
on the market.
Titans are sold via contracts or via private deals.
Okay, that didn't used to be able to be done.
I mean, you could, like, I've heard of sales in the past year happening in passes where the guy goes in, ejects, and you go in your pot and you get in the ship. Definitely still happens.
Well, I mean, that
It's-
was the
it's
entire
probably-
point of that was why there were 3 third-party services.
Yeah, it's
But,
very
I mean, you can
unlike,
still
like,
use keep stars, but my point is that, like, what about Hibernet, right? Titans are on Hibernet, should have never been on Hibernet.
why not?
Titans should not be in structures.
Why
What
not?
does Hypernet
Or
type?
stations, rather. Should not be in
What's wrong with
stations.
Hypernet? Like, Hypernet allows people who aren't in the big groups to acquire large assets.
Right, but Hypernet requires the item be in a station.
What's the problem here?
I really think you're overestimating how much of an effect this would have. Like, everyone will just cough in it, and like,
I mean, I'm not
you've
saying
really
it's the be
changed
all.
much.
You asked me what kind of change I would do. That's totally divorced from what they might do.
You would either get people like Johnny and Mav that would just start coughing Titans again,
I
or
mean,
you
I
would get
already
people,
do that.
yeah, or people who have started playing in the last 5 years who would just outright quit, which is not something that Eve can necessarily afford at the moment.
Like, you'd see there, like, the amount of super caps and Titans that are used would definitely go down because people who use their, like, super carrier as their carrier, their Titan as their dread wouldn't exist anymore. They'd have to give up the Titan. You'd also alienate a large chunk of the player base who would feel betrayed by that requirement, I think.
Okay. I mean, like, there's been many, many examples, a little bit, in which the player base have gotten super mad because we've gone back to a standard, or just changed this, made the standard harder altogether.
Not
Like, I would
necessarily
say
disagreeing with your
it's such a
point.
bigger difference than
Recently?
everything else that they've done.
So I would say, yeah, look at the PC recently. Like, I don't think, this is where.
Okay, so then they should make no changes ever because everything's
guess,
gonna what the hell?
No, but
I think
changes.
I would
No, that's not a good.
question-
Like, that's not the reason to not do it.
Changes should be iterative and help, like, provoke more conflict and
Yeah.
more content. And if things get thrown out of whack for whatever reason, they should be iterated on again and frequently.
You know what people complained about before the war? The fact that things were stagnant. And the reason why things were stagnant was because they couldn't do real damage against their opponent, because asset safety allowed their opponent to just keep their stuff secured afterwards. Therefore, people were not motivated to attack each other. I heard this time and time again.
Before, there was no reward for hitting people. Now you have the cores. Before, there was 3 timers on every structure. That's not going to be the case anymore.
But that it wasn't. This doesn't pay out enough. It's we don't actually damage our opponent.
I think there was more of it that was it's a whole lot better use for our time to crab.
I don't think anyone who is in, like, a position of authority on the Pappy side doesn't think that, like, serious damage was not inflicted to the Imperium in the war, because it was.
The war is after this point that I was talking about.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I'm talking about the stagnation that led to CCP to make the decision to enter into scarcity.
So
the number one complaint I remember hearing was that war was meaningless because loss has been undermined.
So then why did a war start?
Say again?
Why
So
does
then
any-
why did a war start? If it was meaningless, the fuck? I'm so confused by you right now. I don't get it. You're saying
I have
you're
no
saying-
delusions that the war was started like for a purely material benefit. There's some amount of the
It
war
was
I'm sure that
fun.
was it's a video game, let's go shoot people.
Right. Like that was probably the whole thing. And all the narratives and
Right.
stuff are super
So
fun,
people
but
waited but there was like several years before that where it was just getting worse. That's my point. Like, and furthermore, that actually happened, after things started falling into into chaos, as it were.
Well, Test and Goons have always wanted to kill each other. They're like the people out in Tennessee. What is it? The McCoys and the Hatfields of Eve. But I must say, on a caveat, this is the most intellectually stimulating conversation in regards to the Eve processes that I've ever seen on a Discord server.
Really?
That's because you're in Brave.
It's not because I'm in Brave. I've been in Goons. I've been in Test. I've been in Brick Squad. I've been all over the fucking place.
Well, that's fine. That's okay.
It's because Johnny's here and he's smarter than the rest of us combined.
This show is crosstalk, Mav. That's what this show
What's
is.
crosstalk?
This show. That's what
No,
I
it's
just said.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Is it just Trash Talk Tuesday on a Wednesday?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
And the
Pog.
plan. So the plan is to stream any day that there is news like this.
Well,
The
and you're
big
just gonna give
changes
it a
and-
random name, or is it the crosstalk name?
It's just crosstalk.
That makes sense.
That's the whole
Pog.
show. Yep.
Love
Could it
how
be
it's
Whinging
different.
Wednesday?
Mm-mm.
Different and a
Yikes.
positive change. Run with it.
I'm not putting it on specific days. There's no schedule. It just happens when it happens.
No, but like depending on the day, we could just give it a different name, right? Trash Talk Tuesday, Whinging Wednesday.
We
Well, I
tried
like the
that.
idea of us having an episode like this where Hachi coming in and starting the Brave slinging aside. Like it's mostly been actually talk about the changes as
Yeah.
opposed to TTT, which sometimes devolves into absolute chaos.
Risk
The
Ball
chaos is
knows
the
that
best
I have
thing
no
about
schedule and I
TTT.
cannot be scheduled. No, but
I think
so
that also has a lot to do with the amount of meat that's on the bone with this discussion, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
lot of
there's
things
so
to
much.
chew on and discuss.
But
Oh,
Ash,
no, there's
I
very
want to
meaty
go back.
conversations that also turn into nothing.
I want to go back to your comment about the war and its start. Like it didn't start because of anything that CCP did. It was time. It had been like 5 years, so it was time to go for the Goonies again. That's
Well,
what
I mean, it was.
I'm not talking about why the war started. I'm talking about why CCP made decisions that
Like
they
the
did.
war only
Okay.
happened, by the way, because of COVID and because so many FCs were on lockdown and like trapped in their houses for 24 hours a day, nothing else to do. Like I firmly believe there may never be a war like that in EVE again, where like you have so many content creators and FCs who are able to play so much at the same time.
Right. It was a beautiful time. Like I wish I would have participated.
Well, I
in
mean, no,
more,
it
but-
wasn't. We were all trapped
Reality
inside.
doesn't matter.
People were
All that matters is
dying.
what CCP thinks because they're the ones that make the changes and they're the ones that makes the
What?
decisions. I'm talking about
Right,
why
but-
CCP is doing the
What?
decisions that they're making.
But boiling it back down to its basic concept, I don't think that war had anything to do with asset safety, and I don't
No.
think that stagnation was created by asset safety.
I'm not
I don't
saying
even
any
think
of
it
that.
contributed to.
I'm
You
not.
did.
I'm not saying
You
any of
said that
No,
things
I'm
were
not.
stagnant because people didn't want to
No.
attack each other because they
No,
told
I'm
you that
not
they
saying
couldn't do
that.
real damage.
Can I be clear? I said that that's what I heard. That means that that's what when CCP made started to execute these
that's what
plans
people told you.
or orchestrate these plans. Those were the problems that they were trying to solve.
Uh-huh.
That's my point. Not whether or not it actually does or doesn't or anything like that. But those were the things that were in their ear.
Sure.
But just like what we have now is largely a result of the whole like farms and fields concept being like filtered through different processes. So like my point is just I'm not trying to say what should or shouldn't happen. I'm trying to say like I
did say that. You said
there's
the
more
Titans
coming in that
shouldn't be able
sense.
to dock in stations. That is
That's
specifically
just
saying what
mechanically
shouldn't
true.
happen.
As far as the direction of the game goes, the perception I have is that TCP's taking a lot of good advice from the CSMs this time around, and probably last year's as well, probably more than they have in the past, without being a fly on wall, of course. And it feels like a lot of these patches have taken things away from the stagnation time zone.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
Right.
It's
This is
exciting.
as I said, this is the green light, right? Like for the last several years, or the last couple of years, there's been, a soft cap on the manufacturing, especially on capitals, and then more recently battleships and faction ships. Right. There's been kind of a pause. It was no longer smart to build stuff. So only people that required it was actually like putting the energy to do it. But we've all knew that this was going to come eventually, right? That when all these pieces were in place, CCP would be like, okay, now go. And that's what this is.
But why? Why are we gonna go?
What?
Why are we gonna go?
I don't know. Watch FanFest.
Dank frags and dank cores. We're here for the nugs and the brawls.
Look,
The-
guys,
the
I just
nugs and
really,
the
really want to play
brawls.
Crystal Conflict right now. So
Have we talked about the effect of the changes on wormhole groups?
Yes.
A little bit.
Oh,
Perception
yeah.
Please not
seems to
again.
be perception seems to be, Mav, that it bones wormholers, but no one here's legit wormholers, so we can't really give like an informed opinion.
I started
tested
getting
both.
into wormholing a little bit, and like that, I now have a little bit more concern about my staging structure than I did before the changes.
I
I've
just want
talked
to
to
give
both
a
Yeah.
quick shout out to Nick
Evie.
Sharp 20. Thanks, Nick. Here's your attention.
Who?
I've talked to both Evie and Ashy as well as some others, and like I said, every wormhole person I've talked to and seen has come across as extremely negative towards these changes.
Well, of course. A
Yeah,
lot of
it
them use medium
kinda-
structures. It
Yeah.
absolutely fucks them.
But their concern is, so a lot of these people aren't like, don't even necessarily live in it themselves, but they want a more vibrant wormhole space. The concern is that people will just not move into wormhole space because it requires such a commitment, and they don't know whether or not.
I would
What I
like to
love
hear
about
from
that
more
argument
about this. Like someone
What
who's
I
actually
love-
informed.
about that argument is that a lot of the people who have those viewpoints are probably also a lot of the people in the groups that are evicting people out of wormholes.
Well, they want
not
people to be
all
able to
of
put
them,
stuff
but,
down
like,
in it to
yeah.
evict, but I mean, possibly. But I mean,
you should see if you can get someone from like one of the bigger wormhole groups on here for their perspective, because I feel like everyone here is kind of speculating, doesn't really have like an in-depth.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
I
Ashley's
agree
I
with
have
you.
talked to
holders, right?
them. If you want to hear what they've told me. Hi,
Please.
guys.
And that's my problem, is that I don't know if I want to. I don't know
I'm
if
sure
I
you
want to
do,
hear
Red
what the
Line. I know you
wormholers
want to.
have to say, Brisk.
I know you want to hear
Brisk,
what
I
they
am
have to say.
honored by your
I'm
presence,
not
sir.
sure I care
Hi,
what
guys.
wormholers like.
What?
So the
sorry.
wormholers, the main issue for them is they think that because of the amount of time that it takes to retrostructure now in wormhole space, that they're going to have to be constantly vigilant. They're never going to be able to do anything or go anywhere or even go on vacation because they could wake up one morning and all of a sudden their shit's pushed in. So I think the issue with that, and I think that's a legitimate gripe, you know. So I've been talking to Aurora, and we're going to try to see if we can get another day or two added to the ref time in wormholes, because that gives them at least the opportunity to decide, all right, are we going to fight back? Are we going to run away? Or are we going to try to, you know, defend it all? And makes it possible for them to do that. But I mean, that's the main people complaining about this patch. They're the only ones really complaining. I mean, I understand the small group guys are bitching to Arcia, but other than that, those are the main guys complaining right now. And I think that's
I
legitimate.
honestly think it is just like what you're saying about the time. Like, I think the rest of the changes are good, but wormholes are like very much affected in the amount of time like they get between the timers now.
Yeah, because
Like,
it's already
like a
such a
day and
short.
a half. Like, you turbo ref it, and
Yeah,
then like
super fast.
1.5 days, and like you're fucking gone. You're out. Like all your shit's gone.
The other thing is that maintaining hull control for a day and a half is a much smaller ask than maintaining
Super
hull
easy.
control for 3 days or more. So, you know, like when we just got evicted, how much crap did we manage to pull out simply because we had 3 days and there was no way that they were going to be able to make that coverage, so they didn't even bother at certain times, right? If it had been a day and a half, then they would have made sure that they had hull control the entire time.
Yeah.
So
I guess
there's
it's
a lot
an
of, there's a lot
interesting
more.
dynamic, and it makes wormholes much risky. But I think you'll probably see some people pulling out because of it if it goes ahead like it is right now.
I have floated the idea of like multiple types of cores.
Redline.
Yes, sir.
What is on the stream?
That is Abyssal
What the
Bear.
fuck is that?
That is Abyssal
That's
Bear.
Redline.
Why is
Redline
it
is
called
Bear.
Abyssal Bear?
Because
it's a bear.
He's a bear, and he lives in abyssal space.
What the fuck?
Abyssal Bear.
Bruh.
So I will say, Brisk, I'm proud of you for, you know, you promised that you'd always represent the wormholers. I'm proud of you for representing the wormholers.
Well, and somebody has to, right?
I don't see, that's the thing, Brisk, is that I don't know if someone has to. I'm not sure if wormholers are real people or if they're NPCs.
Wormholers are people too. I was hanging out with Teddy and Ashley the other day.
I don't
They're
know who
real
that
people.
is.
Oh my god.
I'm proud whenever I see Brisk doing his speeches and whatnot. He's got a Virginia state flag behind him.
Goddamn right.
Well, speaking of people that don't exist, the other group that's really concerned about this is HiSec, right? Because they feel like...
Why would they be upset about this?
It's HiSec. Why wouldn't they be?
Well, I mean, besides that,
the problem is that as of right now, they have about it's a reduced time and opportunity to mount a defense. A lot of times, you know, HiSec groups that are under attack will hire mercenaries or whatever. This is actually going to make an increased pressure on the idea of like merc groups that specialize in taking out a HQ within 24 hours, right? Because that was already true that you could take out the HQ before your ref timer was, but it was also true that it was kind of like, well, we'll see what happens with the armor timer and other things like that. So the idea that like now you can hire a mercenary and that mercenary can take out the war headquarters in 24 hours makes that into one of the better options when it comes to how to defend yourself.
Or it means don't use an Astra house as your war headquarters.
Which I think
Right.
is cool because it means people who are doing like high sec wars actually have to invest a little bit.
Well,
more.
then if that's true, then these big war decker corps are, upscaling their structures, and that means when everybody bands against them in order to take out the war HQ, it's even a bigger structure, which is nice.
I was
Makes it
gonna
more
say,
fun.
I've seen those big high-sec groups form 70 rattlesnakes. I'm not too worried about them being able to defend their structure.
And also, I mean, keep in mind,
I mean-
HiSec gets the longest time anyway. They get 4.5 days.
Right.
So it's not like they don't have time to.
They're
put
the ones
stuff
that
together.
usually use medium structures, and the idea is that like, so having 2 chances to defend is a big deal for them. I'm not saying that it's a huge thing, but you said that wormholers are the biggest complainers right now, and the number 2 I've seen so far is from people that have or want high sec territory.
I just don't.
I'm
At
excited.
least in terms of the high tech stuff, I just that's to me that argument is kind of annoying because one, when somebody's coming after you because they war decked you. So you get warning. All right, they're coming. Well, we got to prepare. As soon as we get a war deck, we got to prepare now. Second, they get 4.5 days. They get plenty of time. And how many of these guys are even? I mean, they're not contesting on shield timers in the first. I mean, nobody does. So they have one chance to make sure they don't get their stuff blown up or they upship.
Let me
They
be
can
very
pick
clear. I'm saying that it's a good thing because it reinforces the occupation of that Merc Corp, right? I hope to see, Noir has already been doing this, but I hope to see more groups that offer their services. Oh, you've been war decked? I can solve that for you.
Yeah, it's something we've been doing a little bit actually, and it's what I see with this change. There's definitely pros and cons to it on that point. I think it will be nice that when it comes to someone getting their structures attacked that goes out to hire one of these groups that are doing this mercenary work, there is just like a defensive timer to worry about, and you should still be able to handle a theoretical if they're doing like an Astra War HQ. It makes the whole process quicker on the merc side too, which could be really nice.
Wouldn't it be nice though if there was some type of forced application where for war deckers that are aggressing like a nullsec entity, so that they can't war deck somebody for the foreseeable future, that would force them to have to go out and make attempts on the actual war target that they basically launch the attack on. So like if they war deck on one of us and they war deck us for like 5 months and they've never made once a play on the station.
Well, you just take out their war headquarters, and that locks them out for 2 weeks at least. I just personally, I feel like the idea of multiple cores that have different functionality that they provide might be a cool thing to experiment. I think that the real issue here is a feeling of a lack of choice, or gradation in how to solve the problem. But it's day one. We'll see how we process this. Again, also,
we've talked about that. I mean, we talked about that today, as a matter of fact. I mean, the whole. I think the biggest issue there is the multiple core thing. Probably turns into a serious, like a bitch and a half for them to code. So I think it's easier to try to do these types of dial changes rather than putting like another new module in the game and then having people have to decide what they want and. Do they want a core that does X and then provides this benefit or whatever? But I think a lot of I mean, honestly, for the most part, we're talking about medium structures. Okay. An After House, what, 800 bill? Or 800 million. It's not a ton of ISK. So it's not like, that there's not a way to fix this just by getting the groups to put a little more money in. And frankly, high sec and I don't think it's as much of an issue in wormholes, but it's an issue in null sec and it's an issue in high sec, I think, It's just the structure spam is everywhere. Everybody's got, you can drop an Astra house with not even thinking about it. And plenty of groups do that all the time. So if it makes people think a little bit more, all right, if I drop this, there's a 95% chance it's going to die. Maybe they'll decide not to drop something if they don't need to.
I don't know, man. I think that it's more of a. I've been trying to figure out how to put this for a while, because when it comes to like specifically newer players, and like I consider most of Highsight to be newer players, they see those things and they want those things. And I think Ashtrathi, you brought it up earlier, it kind of hammers it in that those things require a little bit of defense to stay alive, and they learn that quickly. I feel like it's gonna be fine for everybody, even wormholers.
I again go back to that question of like, how many people really, how many places have that third timer or that second timer was the thing that saved them, right? Like they
The
wouldn't have
armor
lost it
timer?
otherwise. No, because remember that we can't just say, oh, these were saved in Hull, because how many times have our armor timers been a weak defense because there's still a Hull timer to fall back on? My point is that
never.
It depends.
Yeah, most
I
of the
mean,
fighting happens on the armor timer because you know you
Exactly.
have the time to get out after the like. If you fuck up and you're gonna lose it, you just like dock up and then you've got like a day and a half, 2 days to like get out, right?
Right, your fleet's not going to die if the structure dies, which is common on the Hull timers.
What I will
How do you
say
strike?
is when Boom was still a thing, I can think of 5 or 6 timers that we lost the armor and came back and won the Hull. And
Yeah,
we
it
went
does
full out for both
occasionally
of them.
happen.
my point is that
Them too.
like I don't think that this is the thing that like that's the thing that's going to save the structure. If they were going to overwhelm you now. So you know those people that
Right, but
couldn't protect themselves against a war deck, they wouldn't be able to do it either way. This at least gets the process over a lot faster. You know, rip
Well,
the
and that's one of the
Band-Aids off.
reasons why I don't like when I see a lot of the small groups bitching. You know, I'm just like, guys, you weren't able to defend yourself against the big guys anyway. This is not going to make that much of a difference to you one way or the other. If the big guys
Right.
are coming, you're going to die one way or the other. Just a question of how long it takes. So the people coming with the but the children and the small groups are getting screwed. It's like, well, you know,
They
you
could.
were already screwed. Sorry.
But the thing is, though, hold on, let me go.
Yeah.
So with this, the whole thing is that these structures right now aren't really worth the time that it takes to kill. And I'm pretty sure that they're still not going to be worth the time that it takes to kill after this stuff goes live. Like, unless there's some sort of a grudge somewhere, what's the point of blowing up a structure? A core? Like, I'm not going to like go through the
I think you
tracking
vastly
phase.
underestimate the amount of people that do different things for different reasons in this game.
Well, you're saying it yourself, though. You're saying on one hand that how is the what did you say? What did you say about the? Oh, you said how's the third timer stopping them from doing it now? So you're asking that, but then you're saying that this is gonna make it happen more. I'm really confused by what you're saying.
What? No, what I'm saying is that I believe that the people that are one of the things that let me just say I agree with you, and I think that shoot, I've got too much going on in my house, and I'm also playing Crystal Conflict.
I'm out.
Let me pull together my thoughts.
My big issue right now is that there's no Abyssal Bear on the screen. This is not okay.
Hey, come on, man. The light is bright, okay? I got a ring light on the camera. It turns on. It goes, blah. Don't like it.
So I think what you're seeing there is the difference between my belief in the understanding of reality of the situation is me communicating are saying or afraid of, right? In fact, I was saying that like what I've heard is people complaining about this, but I suspect that this might be or overstated because how many people are really being saved by that. And ultimately what I keep hearing from both wormholers and Highset is that they rely on the I can't be bothered factor to save them. And so what they're really concerned about is that anything that makes it easier makes it more likely that something's going to happen. And they rely on the fact that people don't get around to doing it because it's too much bother.
Isn't that bad gameplay design though inherently?
It is absolutely bad game design. I'm saying that this is what they feel like and this is why. And so those players are likely not going to be listened to, hopefully.
All right, I'm happy now.
That's
Bear's
HTFU.
back.
I'm glad you're happy.
Thank you.
Cringe bear.
Whatever. it's
Redline,
fine.
I got here late, so did you guys talk about all the morons who think that all these changes were made because goons asked for them?
That's
we
amazing.
did. Yes, I
Damn.
had the
Missed
post from the forums on the stream. It was up for about 15-20 minutes.
This is
before
what I get
changed
for
it.
coming late.
Wait,
Yeah.
Matani isn't to blame for everything?
Not lately.
This just seems to be them complaining about not having enough resources yet.
I don't think that's
Sure.
people are complaining because there weren't these changes are being made now when goons are in an offensive campaign, and they would never think to do it while Pappy was in an offensive campaign.
Oh, come on.
That's a
It
ridiculous.
is a little sassy.
No,
It's not at all.
Sus at all.
No,
They've been
it's
working on.
sassy. It's
That's why all
big
of the
sassy.
super nerfs happened around that
Everybody
time?
has been pounding on these guys for
Whatever.
years to unfuck their shit, and they finally do it. It has nothing to do with the fact that we're deployed to Faith Abilis at all. I mean, hell, Faith is already dead.
What's funny about this is that with all of these other people being routed, they're pointing this to me like, see, look, this is why. Like that feels so much like retroactive justification, right?
Pretty much.
Does the change help the Imperium? Sure it does, but no sane person is going to try and argue that this was done exclusively for their benefit and no one else's.
That's
what
There's a lot of insane people out there.
I just went on the
I think it
Reddit.
helps
The top
everybody.
post. The top post is Pappy is salty about good changes.
Right.
Oh
Yes,
god! And then the top
literally-
comment
And
is
it's
Redline
Redline.
shit posting. That's
Oh,
amazing.
is that true?
Yeah.
Redline, you have like almost, I think, 200 karma on that upload.
218.
No shot, dude. No
Yeah, I just
shot.
upvoted you.
Welcome to your top post.
218.
I didn't know we've had 218 players anymore.
All right, let's see.
This is your legacy now, Redline.
Oh,
Embrace
wow,
it.
you're right.
Blackout's over. This is
The
what you're known for.
The dynamic duo. But see, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that I always got to be known for something. At some point. Right?
To be honest, like I don't really care about the timing. Like I'm hyped about the changes, and like yeah, they benefit the Imperium, but like it's also good for the game and good. I'm sure it's good for test too.
I'm trying to think about a patch that I've been more excited for than this one. I can't think of one recent memory.
I was very excited about the SS.
Yeah, that's a good change too.
Yeah, and the battleship stuff that was good, but this is like very different. Like the changes to medium structures, I think is going to be very interesting.
This will impact like the way campaigns are run, like less so than how PvP operates, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And some of the tactics that were very like commonplace to try and like defeat your enemies through breaking their morale by mediums are probably a little bit more obsolete.
God, I'm so fucking hyped for like ninja reffing a structure with like
the Revenant.
I love stuff. Yeah, the Revenant, the Komodo.
By the way, did you guys catch the implementation? They've been talking about this whole time the fact that they're adding in all these different levers so that way they can change one thing without changing the other. This is actually a really good example of that because they didn't decrease the costs or the cost to build the core temperature regulators by much, just the water thing. But capital core temperature regulators now require only 100 core temperature regulators instead of 250.
Yeah, I'll
so
be
they
honest.
vastly decreased the price of capitals and super capitals without necessarily decreasing the price of battleships in this case.
I tried to understand the changes and like the conclusion I came to is Pog, this looks good. And yeah, I'm waiting for the actual smart industry people who do this stuff to like finish looking at it, but it seems good. So,
well, I mean, honestly, from my take on this, everything is going to get cheaper, and that's good.
Yeah.
And I know some people are going to probably argue, oh, it's too cheap. You can't have this stuff too cheap now. Oh my God, loss has to matter in this game. And I'm going to tell them after 2 years of everything being too goddamn expensive,
And I mean,
happy to have the pendulum on the other side for a
I've
little
already
while.
seen people
Everyone's-
complaining that ice is now too cheap.
Everyone's gonna have their own spot on the barometer for it too, but I think part of it is like nothing looks too cheap to me. Like even with it getting cheaper, like I think the prices
Yeah.
that people are napkin mathing look pretty good.
Yeah, they do, and it doesn't look too cheap, and it's also more expensive than it was like 3 years ago.
Just
Because
a
like
bit.
you could get a battleship for like 100 mil, and now it's gonna be what 120, 130, something like that.
It's going to be nice. I'm
It's
looking
like three.
forward to it.
It's like, wait, is it being reduced by that much? Because I thought most of the components
know.
for battleship, it
There's
should
a
be
Reddit
like still
post.
250, 300, right?
Yeah,
For a
it'll
regular
be more than
battleship?
that, but I mean, faction battleships, everything's going down a little bit, and I mean, obviously the capital's got the biggest reductions, but they needed it, you know.
Faction
I
is going to
think-
get a big reduction, but standard battleships not so.
Well, standard battleships didn't need it as much. They're okay.
No, yeah, exactly.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, true.
I don't think
Okay.
I don't think anybody's bitching about T1 battleships. Nobody was bitching about cruisers and stuff. The biggest, I mean, the other thing that I would really like them to do is something that uses T2 minerals, because you know the prices of hacks and stuff are just way too low. I would rather have people flying battleships than hacks all the time, because I like battleships better, and I'm bored with hack fleets
How do
constantly.
you feel about hull dreads and battleships?
I like hot dreads. I like battleships. I would like to see both of them fighting each other. That would be fun.
I can't wait for that. I hope that's something that happens. So team, we've been live for a pretty long time. My eyes are actually getting kind of blurry. It's getting kind of late. I think
Well,
we
you
should
are a
wrap.
bear.
I think we should wrap it up. It's getting kind of unbearable.
I have something to say
You've been
before you
waiting to
end
use
it,
that,
though.
weren't you?
Brave is cringe.
Okay, fair.
I was about to ask, does it involve Brave? I should have known that it would.
Yeah, now's a great chance for any last thoughts you guys have about any of this stuff. We'll
Mav, you should invade Pureblind about it.
Maybe I will. Like, maybe I fucking will. Maybe Tess is deploying to Pureblind tomorrow.
and we're gonna raid. We're gonna raid somebody. We're gonna raid
Brave.
We're gonna raid LB. Boy, LB. All right.
Mav, I'm glad you're back, but
So this is
I'm
a
going
new
again.
Thing. It's a new
Aw.
thing. No, just stay. You guys have
Nah.
a minute for your last thoughts before I send the raid over. So
Og.
I'm just happy that CCP did a
Poggers.
change that everybody doesn't hate. We'll go back to them hating everything next week.
right.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the change.
I'm excited for FanFest.
I can't wait to lose another cat fleet.
Yeah.
I hope
I'm,
people are actually going to FanFest.
Should be pretty interesting to say the least. I'm excited for all these new graphics on this channel. This shit, I love how it looks. Oof. No, hell no, I made all these graphics myself. No, I love the HyperNet. Dude, I actually got 2 Marauders and a Widow off the HyperNet for like less than a bill. It was nuts. Alright, team. We'll see you next time. It'll probably be soon. Remember to watch the weekend stream for 100 frigate 1v1s.